Chapter 285 Committing Murder to Snatch a Treasure 1. This smell of blood is so aromatic. The Blood Moon Sect elder was indulged in the bloody smell, which was rich with spirit energy. Yi Qingtang rolled her eyes at him and headed out to find out what happened. However, when Yi Qingtang scanned the situation, she suddenly saw a terribly battered figure, which caused her mind to explode. Outside Xianling's sect, Yin Shu, who was covered in blood, collapsed on the clouds with feeble breathing. A large amount of blood gushed out from his body and stained the clouds beneath his body. All color was lost from his good-looking face, leaving a complexion as pale as a sheet of paper. Senior brother Yin. Yi Qingtang, alarmed, dashed out of the sect immediately. A group of disciples surrounded and looked at the miserable Yin Shu in confusion. Yi Qingtang hurried to Yin Shu's side and held Yin Shu up. Yin Shu looked up with great effort, and when he saw Yi Qingtang, his body trembled slightly. He suddenly clutched onto Yi Qingtang tightly. Junior sister Yi. Senior brother Yin, what happened to you? Who injured you? Yi Qingtang's eyebrows were tightly furrowed. Lu Xiuwen. Junior sister Yi. Lu Xiuwen. He injured me in order to snatch my Shangyue fire tripod. Yin Shu said strenuously as though every word was squeezed out from his throat. Shock filled Yi Qingtang's eyes. Lu Xiuwen. Yin Shu already had no energy left and passed out after forcing this sentence out of his mouth. Yi Qingtang looked at the long trail of blood behind Yin Shu and did not dare to imagine how Yin Shu crawled back to Xianling's sect with such heavy injuries. The bright red blood stain pierced her eyes. Senior brother Yin, I will not let Lu Xiuwen off. Don't worry. Yi Qingtang carried Yin Shu and rushed into the sect with the Blood Moon Sect elder following right after. In her previous life, Yi Qingtang only knew that Lu Xiuwen was the one who revealed her secret regarding the heart of the demon god. Yet it turned out that he actually harmed Yin Shu secretly as well. It seemed that Yin Shu was so wretched in his previous life exactly because of Lu Xiuwen's murderous schemes. Yi Qingtang had heard of the Shangyue fire tripod that Yin Shu mentioned earlier. That was the treasure that he happened to obtain in the previous mission. It could increase one's cultivation speed and was extremely rare. And Yi Qingtang was happy for him as well. Yet unexpectedly, this Fengyue fire tripod actually caused him to meet with a fatal disaster. Yi Qingtang swiftly sent Yin Shu to the physician, who was also stunned to see Yin Shu's injuries, and quickly treated him. As the blood-stained clothes were disrobed from Yin Shu, a deep cut on his chest of which his bones could be seen was revealed. An intense murderous expression flashed across Yi Qingtang's eyes. The cut on Yin Shu's chest was extremely deep, and was less than a finger away from his heart. If the cut was just a little deeper, Yin Shu would have lost his life already. The news of Yin Shu's severe injuries spread throughout the entire outer sect rapidly. It was then that Yi Qingtang realized that Yin Shu was out on a mission with a group of people including Lu Xiuwen and Su Wan. However, the group had already returned to the sect to submit their mission 2 days ago, and even reported that Yin Shu met with a mishap in the mission. Now that Yin Shu suddenly returned, there was indeed a huge stir, and the warden of the disciplinary hall immediately ordered for Yin Shu to be brought over after hearing what Yin Shu said before he fainted. Chapter 286. Although Yin Shu did regain consciousness after the emergency treatment, he was still in a very bad condition. His body was so weak that he could not even stand still, and his hands were impaired from using them to crawl back to the sect such that it would be extremely strenuous for him to wield a sword in the future. The physician treated Yin Shu while sighing in pity at the same time. Physician, how are senior brother Yin's injuries? Yi Qingtang asked with a frown. The physician sighed. The wound on his chest is very deep, but it is fortunate that his heart was not affected, and his life is not in danger. However, the physician held his words back and only continued after a while. His injuries have been dragged on for too long. He probably crawled all the way back to the sect, and there are too many wounds all over. His knee joints and hands are severely wounded, and too much blood was lost. This would implicate his spirit root is damaged and in the future. The physician did not finish his sentence, and merely shook his head regretfully. Yin Shu was born with good natural endowments, and if he had not met with this accident, he definitely would have achieved many things in the future. However, there were numerous injuries this time. There might be many effects even after he recovered. Thus, he might not progress much in the future. It was really a pity. Yi Qingtang clenched her fists tightly and frowned. This was how the senior brother Yin in her previous life fell into a slump. The once talented youth, who had a bright future ahead of him, was now destroyed by Lu Xiaowen. Junior sister Yi. I want to go. I want to unveil. Lu Xiaowen's disgusting face, in front of everyone. Yin Shu said with difficulty, as he clenched his teeth. For the first time, there was hatred in his warm eyes. He would never forget the moment when Lu Xiaowen attacked him. They were clearly brothers from the same sect. Yet Lu Xiaowen wanted to kill Yin Shu, just to snatch the Shangyue fire tripod from Yin Shu. Yi Qingtang frowned even more deeply as she looked at Yin Shu's current state. In her previous life, Yin Shu must have been through this as well. Otherwise, he would not have ended up like that. However, a few years later, Lu Xiaowen was still doing well in the outer sect, and even became the best outer sect disciple. Evidently, Yin Shu's report failed. Lu Xiaowen definitely must have made full preparations long ago. And even if Yin Shu reported the case to the warden, there was no way he could ensure Lu Xiaowen to be convicted. Please help me to bring my senior brother to the disciplinary hall. I will head there soon, Yi Qingtang said to the physician slowly, and quietly took a piece of Yin Shu's blood-stained clothes from behind her. There was a flicker in the eyes of the Blood Moon sect elder, who had been following beside Yi Qingtang, when he saw Yi Qingtang's actions. Seeing that Yi Qingtang took her leave, the Blood Moon sect elder followed after her immediately. Yi Qingtang did not go to the disciplinary hall straight, but instead headed for the dormitory that the new disciples were staying in. Many disciples were surrounded in the disciplinary hall, and the outer sect elder in charge of discipline frowned at the two disciples before him. Yin Shu, you said that Lu Xiaowen secretly attacked you and stole your Shangyue fire tripod when you were severely injured after you all finished your mission. Is this true? In the big hall of the disciplinary hall, the pale Yin Shu was standing with difficulty while being supported by another disciple. Blood seeped out from the bandage around his chest. His lips were so pale that there was no color at all, and his legs were trembling uncontrollably as his body was overly weak. Elder, everything I said is true. It was Lu Xiaowen who led me to a deserted area and suddenly attacked me. After severely injuring me, he snatched the Shangyue fire tripod away. Chapter 287. The warden frowned deeply, and he looked sternly at Lu Xiaowen, who was standing beside Yin Shu with a relaxed expression. Lu Xiaowen, what do you have to say about this? Lu Xiaowen took a glimpse of Yin Shu's pale face from the corner of his eyes without emotion. I have never done such a thing, the warden said. When you all returned from the mission, it was reported that Yin Shu was met with a mishap. Now that Yin Shu is still alive and accused you of murder, how are you going to explain this? Lu Xiaowen replied. Half a month ago, junior brother Yin and I went out on a mission with the rest. We did not have any conflicts on the journey. I was with other teammates from the start to the end, and did not have any chance to attack junior brother Yin. Junior brother Yin was lost from the group when we were killing the demonic beast. After the demonic beast was slaughtered, junior brother Yin was missing, and we searched the forest for a long time, but only saw his blood-stained clothes, so we thought junior brother Yin was murdered. Then, Lu Xiaowen turned to look at the furious Yin Shu and said calmly, I do not understand why junior brother Yin would accuse me as his murderer as well. Please clear my name, warden. Lu Xiaowen spoke neither hurriedly nor slowly, and there was neither panic nor guilt in his tone. At that sight, the disciples surrounding outside the disciplinary hall could not help but start whispering. Yin Shu and Lu Xiaowen were the most gifted out of the new disciples, and their skills were around the same level. However, these two new talents were involved in this incident, and many were interested to watch on. Lu Xiaowen is born in the formidable Heavens Royals. What kind of treasures has he not seen before? He shouldn't go as far as to snatch a Shangyue fire tripod, right? What do you know? That Shangyue fire turpo is the best cultivation mystical artifact for Khanate level 9s. It can speed up one's cultivation rapidly. Who doesn't want it? There was originally a slight difference between Lu Xiaowen and Yun Shu's skills, and if one of them obtained the Shangyue fire tripod, that person would definitely be able to get way ahead of the other person. This item is thus obviously a treasure. The warden frowned slightly and said to Yun Shu, "Yun Shu, you said that Lu Xiaowen deliberately led you away. Is there anyone who can testify for you?" Yun Shu frowned. After thinking for a while, his eyes scanned through the crowd and saw Su Wan standing amongst the people. When Su Wan met with Yun Shu's eyes, her eyes flickered a little, and she pursed her lips. "When Lu Xiaowen called me, an outer sect disciple Su Wan was nearby as well," Yun Shu said slowly. The warden pondered for a moment and called Su Wan up. The disciples were struck by a thought when they saw Su Wan going forward. In this period of time, Su Wan and Yun Shu were very close, and there were already rumors about both of them in the outer sect. Now that Yun Shu called Su Wan up to testify for him, everyone could not help but guess that Su Wan would definitely stand against Lu Xiaowen, given her affection for Yun Shu. "Su Wan greets warden," Su Wan said gently. The warden nodded. "Did you see Lu Xiaowen and Yun Shu leaving together that day?" Su Wan's lips were slightly pursed. She took a glance of Yun Shu's expectant face and looked back. After remaining silent for a while, she finally said, "The battle was very intense at that time. I was focused on attacking the demonic beast, so I never took any notice of it." With that, everyone was stunned. Chapter 288. Don't Su Wan and Yun Shu have a thing for each other? Why did she say such a thing here? Since Su Wan said so, I think that Yun Shu's words most likely cannot be trusted. After all, junior sister Su has always adored Yun Shu, and if such a thing really happened, would junior sister Su deny it? Su Wan's words made many felt that Yun Shu was slandering Lu Xiaowen intentionally. Everyone knew of Su Wan and Yun Shu's relationship. If there truly were such a thing, Su Wan would definitely stand on Yun Shu's side. However, a hint of satisfaction flashed across Lu Xiaowen's eyes. Yun Shu widened his eyes in disbelief and looked at Su Wan, who was avoiding his eyes. Whatever he said earlier was not a lie. When Lu Xiaowen called him, he clearly exchanged a look with Su Wan, and she did see him leaving together with Lu Xiaowen. Why was it that at this very moment, Su Wan denied everything? Yun Shu simply could not believe that Su Wan, who had always followed him throughout these days, would backstab him at this critical moment. Su Wan did not return Yun Shu's gaze, and only looked down to avoid everything. She did witness Lu Xiaowen and Yun Shu leaving together, but so what? Yun Shu was already crippled now. While Lu Xiaowen, Su Wan looked up at Lu Xiaowen's back view, and her mind replayed the scene where Lu Xiaowen expressed his affection for her on their way back to the sect. Lu Xiaowen was a royal from the formidable Heaven's Royals, and his identity was as prestigious as Yun Shu's. Now, Yun Shu had become disabled while Lu Xiaowen had a bright future ahead of him. Yun Shu stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. His last ray of hope was shattered the moment Su Wan spoke. A hint of laughter darted across Lu Xiaowen's eyes. Then, he looked at the pale Yun Shu and said, "Junior brother Yin, I know that you suffered a lot this time, and I am very upset as well, but I don't know why must you malign me like this." Then, Lu Xiaowen showed a pained expression. "Lu Xiaowen, when did I malign you? How can you?" Yun Shu trembled in fury when he saw Lu Xiaowen's attitude, and blood flowed out from the cut that was not yet healed. Su Wan's words simply pushed Yun Shu into a bottomless abyss. No matter how he explained now, no one would believe him. Lu Xiaowen looked at the warden and added on, "Warden, all the disciples who participated in this mission can testify that I never left the group by myself." Then, those disciples who were standing aside nodded along. Yun Shu looked at the farce before his eyes and let out a bitter laugh. A drop of blood escaped his mouth as he shut his eyes in pain. The warden frowned slightly. Yun Shu had violated the sect rules by maligning Lu Xiaowen. "Yun Shu, what do you still have to say now?" Yun Shu shook his head slowly. Everyone was testifying for Lu Xiaowen, and no one would believe him at all no matter how he explained. Human or devil, he finally saw clearly. The warden announced coldly, "For maligning a fellow disciple in the sect, you are to be flogged 30 strokes. On the account that your injuries are severe, You are to head to the disciplinary hall by yourself to receive the punishment once you recover. Yes, Yin Shu said with a bitter laugh. The smile in Lu Ziyuan's eyes deepened. Warden, I have something to report. Suddenly, a beautiful female voice traveled into everyone's ears. Chapter 289. Everyone looked up instinctively and saw that Yi Qingtang was at disciplinary hall. Lu Xiaowen narrowed his eyes upon seeing Yi Qingtang. Yin Shu looked in confusion at Yi Qingtang, who suddenly arrived. Are you here to say anything about Yin Shu's matter? The warden asked. The warden's words reflected what many thought. While Yi Qingtang did not interact much with Yin Shu during this period of time, Yi Qingtang was still on good terms with him previously. Now that Yin Shu was in trouble, could it be that Yi Qingtang was here to help him? Lu Xiaowen swept his eyes across Yi Qingtang, though he was not at all bothered. Yi Qingtang never participated in the mission with them, so no matter what she said now, Yin Shu's fate would hardly change. However, senior brother Yun's matter? Yi Qingtang was slightly surprised. She scanned the disciplinary hall and could not help but laugh. You are mistaken. I am not here to talk about senior brother Yun's matter. After all, my mission was different from theirs. How would I know anything that happened in their mission? Quite a number of disciples were taken aback by her words. She was not here to save Yin Shu? The warden said. So what are you here for? Yi Qingtang slowly walked up, and when she reached the warden, she suddenly handed a sword in her hand to the warden. Warden, I picked up a sword on my way back to the sect. There is a Xianling sect symbol carved on it, and I thought that some senior brother must have lost it, so I brought it back together with me. I'm handing it to you to check if there are any clues, so that the item can be returned to its original owner. Lu Ziyuan's eyes flickered when he saw that sword. The warden looked at the sword before him and took it over. When he drew out the sword, there was an obvious, large patch of dried blood stained on the shiny sword. The warden furrowed his eyebrows. Where did you pick up this sword at? In the vicinity of Beiwa Mountains. Yi Qingtang replied. With that said, Su Wan and the rest had a shocked expression. Was that not where Yin Shu was on a mission at? Lu Ziyuan's expression became a little ugly. Beiwa Mountains. Why do I remember that the location of Lu Xiaowen and the rest's mission is around that area? A random disciple voiced from aside. Lu Ziyuan's expression instantly turned even uglier. Yi Qingtang scoffed in her heart. Catching on to what that disciple said, she looked at Lu Xiaowen and asked, Oh, could it be that this sword belongs to senior brother Lu then? Lu Xiaowen narrowed his eyes immediately and uttered coldly, Junior sister Yi, you should not speak carelessly. What evidence do you have to say that you picked up this sword at Beiwa Mountains, and that this sword is mine? The warden frowned as well. Yi Qingtang, do you have any proof? Yi Qingtang looked up, and her eyes quietly fell on the Blood Moon sect elder, who was in the crowd. Senior brother Zhou should have seen this sword as well. She immediately darted the Blood Moon sect elder a look, signaling him to say something. The Blood Moon sect elder saw Yi Qingtang's eyes and pursed his lips. What had it got to do with him? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes slightly as her right hand casually held on the sword on her waist, and drew it out a little. The Blood Moon sect elder felt a chill. He cursed in his heart, and walked up rather unwillingly. Chapter 290. When Lu Xiaowen saw the Blood Moon sect elder who became Zhou Chu, a hint of laughter emerged in his eyes. This Yi Qingtang was really an idiot. Everyone knew about the enmity between Zhou Chu and Yi Qingtang. Plus, Zhou Chu obviously had an intention of cozying up to him on the arena previously. Calling Zhou Chu up right now would probably just be more of a hindrance than help. Then, Lu Xiaowen secretly sighed and said to the Blood Moon sect elder, It would be even better if senior brother Zhou was present. Please clear my name, senior brother Zhou. Under Yi Qingtang's threatening eyes, the Blood Moon sect elder nodded with a smile, and said with an expression which read absolutely, No problem. Don't worry, junior brother Lu. I will definitely say the truth in all honesty. Lu Xiaowen nodded in satisfaction, and glanced at Yi Qingtang with a cold laugh in his eyes. The Blood Moon sect elder walked up to the warden and said, Warden, I have something to report. Say, the warden uttered. After taking a look at the sword, the Blood Moon sect elder turned to look at Lu Xiaowen, who secretly gave him a nod. I indeed witnessed junior sister Yi picking this sword up in the area near Beiwa Mountains. Lu Ziyuan's expression immediately fell after hearing what the Blood Moon Sect elder said. Then the Blood Moon Sect elder continued. I also saw junior brother Lu using this sword before. Lu Ziyuan's expression darkened instantly, and he frowned. Senior brother Zhou, don't speak carelessly. Then, he cast a threatening look to the Blood Moon Sect elder. The Blood Moon Sect elder was simply unaffected. I am not speaking carelessly. I did see you holding this sword before. Lu Ziyuan's expression turned ugly. On the other hand, Yi Qingtang deliberately looked at Lu Xiaowen in surprise. This sword really belongs to senior brother Lu? But the blood stain on this sword. The warden's expression changed, and he immediately summoned someone to compare the blood stain on that sword and Yin Shu's blood. The results shocked everyone. The two blood samples were completely the same, and evidently, the blood on the sword belonged to Yin Shu. When the results were revealed, Lu Ziyuan's expression became extremely ugly. He did attack Yin Shu, but he did not use that sword at all. He clearly placed that sword in his room all this while, and had never used it. But why was it that it was in Yi Qingtang's hands now? Lu Xiaowen really fell into a dire situation, as his own sword was stained with Yin Shu's blood. Then he said, "This sword is indeed mine. However, I already lost it 1 month ago, so I am really unaware of this matter." Unaware? Yi Qingtang suddenly laughed. She narrowed her eyes at Lu Xiaowen, who was trying hard to wash his hands off everything. That is really unusual then. Senior brother Lu, your sword is stained with senior brother Yun's blood, and senior brother Yun said that he was injured by you. I'm afraid there's something hidden in this matter. Lu Xiaowen glimpsed at Yi Qingtang, and could not help but curse internally, though he did not show any expression on his face. All the disciples who went on the mission can testify for me that I did not bring this sword when I went out on the mission. The warden then interrogated other disciples, and the outcome was the same as what Lu Xiaowen said. Even Yin Shu could not help but frown as well. He was injured by Lu Ziyuan's sword, but it was completely not the one that Yi Qingtang handed to the warden. However, at that moment, Yin Shu was not foolish enough to speak up for Lu Xiaowen. Chapter 291. There were many discussions among the disciples, and the warden's expression turned solemn as well. If Lu Xiaowen really harmed Yin Shu, his offense would be serious, but using this sword as evidence was not sufficient. Yi Qingtang took in everyone's expression quietly, and her lips curled into a smile. She walked forward and said, I think what senior brother Lu said should be real. Yi Qingtang's words surprised everyone. What was going on? Yi Qingtang actually spoke up for Lu Xiaowen? Lu Xiaowen was a little surprised as well, completely not understanding what Yi Qingtang was planning to do. Yi Qingtang smiled. I believe that given senior brother Lu's character, he would not do such a despicable thing. If he really did it, wouldn't it bring shame to the entire formidable Heaven's Royals? Someone who could do such a lowly thing that's worse than pigs or dogs is definitely a scoundrel. Although Yi Qingtang's words were helping Lu Xiaowen, they sounded piercing to him. Despicable? Bring shame to the formidable Heaven's Royals? Worse than pigs or dogs? If not for the fact that it was unsuitable to argue right now, Lu Xiaowen really wanted to rip Yi Qingtang's mouth apart. That scumbag was simply using this opportunity to criticize him. Yet, even if he knew that, Lu Xiaowen could only suffer in silence. You're reading on BOXNOVEL. Thanks. Senior brother Lu previously said that he did not lose this sword. And given senior brother Yun's character, I believe that he will not malign a fellow disciple. Thus it is very possible that someone wanted to sow discord. After stealing senior brother Lu's sword, the person pretended to be senior brother Lu, deliberately tricked senior brother Yin, and took the chance to attack him. Ultimately, senior brother Lu should be innocent. Yi Qingtang behaved contrary to her usual attitude towards Lu Xiaowen, as she helped Lu Xiaowen to prove his innocence, which was beyond everyone's expectations. Lu Xiaowen, whose face was pale, was also worried that he would be accountable for the matter regarding the sword, and could only go along with Yi Qingtang. What junior sister Yi said is definitely the case. There must be some bastard who deliberately sowed discord between junior brother Yin and me by pretending to be me and injuring junior brother Yin. This sword must have been stolen by that bastard. The warden frowned and nodded after thinking that it made sense. Who knew? However, Yi Qingtang suddenly added on. Although senior brother Lu is not really related to this incident, it was his sword that hurt senior brother Yin. He did not keep an eye on his items well, and let others have a chance to steal it. If others did not pretend to be senior brother Lu, senior brother Yin would not have fallen for it so easily. So, although senior brother Lu is not the murderer, he is still responsible for the crime. Lu Xiaowen was shocked, and he glared at Yi Qingtang instantly. Everything she said previously was for this moment. Although he knew that he fell for Yi Qingtang's scheme, things had already reached this point, and Lu Xiaowen could only clench his teeth. Indeed, it is all because of me that junior brother Yun suffered such a disaster. I am willing to be punished. The warden said. Lu Xiaowen did not safekeep his items well, and caused his weapon to fall in others' hands. Although you did not personally injure Yin Shu, he was attacked using your weapon. You're exempted from the death penalty, but not from punishment. You are to be flogged 50 strokes. This small punishment will stop you from making even bigger mistakes in the future. As fellow disciples in the same sect, you all should support each other, and not let outsiders have a chance to exploit any of your flaws. Once the warden finished his sentence, Lu Ziyuan's face turned miserably pale immediately. 50 strokes of flogging that could tear one's skin and flesh. However, up to that point, he could only clench his teeth and swallow this ill consequence. Chapter 292. Lu Xiaowen had to receive his punishment right there and then. 2 disciples walked into the hall, each holding a rod of discipline that was 2 meters long and 10 fingers wide. Lu Xiaowen was pressed down on the floor, and the 2 rods hit his bottom unsparingly. Suddenly, a loud clack was heard. The disciplinary hall was dead silent. Everyone widened their eyes and stared as the rod of discipline landed. Lu Ziyuan's good-looking face paled from the pain, and cold sweat ran down his face. Su Wan, who was standing aside, was so shocked by the sound of flesh being torn that she turned pale. She tugged onto the ends of her clothes nervously. Even the strongest and toughest fist faction disciple would not be able to get out of bed for 2 to 3 months after being flogged 50 strokes. While Lu Ziyuan's natural endowments were pretty good, the time he spent on cultivation was still short. After just 20 strokes, the skin and flesh on his bottom were already torn, and the area was dripping with blood. Every time the blood-stained rod landed, blood spattered everywhere and dripped onto the floor. It was a horrifying sight. Yi Qingtang looked on coldly. There was no emotion in her eyes as she watched Lu Ziyuan's face turning purple from being beaten. That excruciating pain caused Lu Ziyuan's mind to buzz. As the prince of the formidable Heaven's Royals, he had never suffered such a violent beating. His veins popped out as cold sweat trickled down continuously. His pale lips were bleeding from his bite. Looking up furiously, he glared at Yi Qingtang, who was faintly smiling with hatred. If Yi Qingtang had not suddenly appeared, he would not need to suffer such humiliation in public. 50 strokes were finished, and Lu Ziyuan's bottom was already terribly battered. Blood covered the floor, and his legs that were soaked with blood could not stop trembling. Senior brother Lu, this is also a lesson learned. In the future, you must definitely keep a close eye on your belongings, and not let anyone have an opportunity to exploit your inadequacy to their advantage. Yi Qingtang looked at the pale Lu Xiaowen with a seeming smile. Lu Ziyuan's teeth chattered due to the pain. Scowling at Yi Qingtang, he said in a raspy voice, "I will definitely remember this lesson for life." The toughest time had already passed. He would definitely not let Yi Qingtang off easily. The days were still long, and he would definitely have a chance to torture her. He would not suffer this 50 strokes of flogging for nothing. There was already a conclusion to the incident today, and the Shengyue fire tripod was already in his hands. Once he recovered, he would use that Shengyue fire tripod to cultivate for a period of time, and would definitely become the best in Xianling sect's outer sect. Although he suffered, it was worth it. Yi Qingtang straightened herself, and suddenly turned to the warden. who was seated in the center of the hall. Warden, Senior Brother Lu is ultimately not the murderer, and now that Senior Brother Lu has already received his punishment, it should be enough. However, the real villain is the murderer who injured Senior Brother Yin. Once Yi Qingtang said that Lu Xiuwen, who was paralyzed on the floor, was shocked. He faintly sensed that Yi Qingtang definitely had another move at the back. Indeed, such a scourge must not be connived in the outer sect. The warden nodded. A hint of laughter passed Yi Qingtang's eyes. Since this person could steal Senior Brother Lu's sword and attack Senior Brother Yun during the mission, it must be a new disciple who participated in that mission. The Shangyue fire tripod that was stolen away must be hidden by that person. Please order people to search the rooms and space rings of all the disciples who took part in this mission. I believe the location of where the item is hidden and will be found very quickly. Once found, the identity of the murderer would naturally be revealed. Chapter 293. Yi Qingtang's words struck Lu Xiuwen's mind like a bolt of lightning. Lu Xiuwen looked up in disbelief and glared at Yi Qingtang. His eyes were full of hatred, as though he wanted to swallow her down alive. The Shangyue fire tripod was hidden in his room. If Yi Qingtang requested the warden to conduct a search right now, would he not? Lu Xiuwen broke out in a cold sweat instantly, and the luck he previously felt vanished into thin air. Once the Shangyue fire tripod was found to be hidden in his room, things would not be as simple as being flogged 50 strokes. He might not even be able to enter Xianling's sect for the rest of his life anymore. At that instant, Lu Xiuwen finally realized what Yi Qingtang was plotting when she said those words previously. She was clearing his name on the surface, but in reality, she was making him pay back in his own coin by slowly leading him to limit the scope of the murderer to the disciples who participated in this mission. He would not be able to keep the Shangyue fire tripod anymore. And he suffered this 50 strokes for nothing. Lu Xiuwen had never hated someone this much. At that very instant, he really wished he could tear Yi Qingtang into pieces. I will send people to investigate immediately. This matter will end here for now. If the murderer is found, he will definitely be punished severely, the warden ordered. After watching the drama and being shocked by the bloody 50 strokes of flogging, the disciples did not dare to speak further and quickly dispersed. Lu Xiuwen was carried away by a few disciples, and before he left, he glared at Yi Qingtang resentfully, as though his eyes were soaked in poison. Yi Qingtang simply could not be bothered with Lu Xiuwen, and immediately walked to Yin Shu's side to support him. Junior sister Yi. Yin Shu grasped Yi Qingtang's wrists tightly. Agitation filled his eyes. He was very aware that if not for Yi Qingtang's timely appearance, not only would he not be able to punish Lu Xiuwen for his crime, he would even be accused of maligning a fellow disciple instead. Yi Qingtang chuckled. Since others were present, she did not say anything, and only helped Yin Shu out. Once they exited the disciplinary hall, Yin Shu could not conceal his gratitude anymore. Junior sister Yi, thank you for standing up for me today. If not for you, I'm afraid. Yi Qingtang shook her head. Senior brother Yin, there's no need for formalities between us. I am clear of what Lu Xiuwen did, but it's a pity that there is no concrete evidence for the warden to convict him. And I could only use wits to resolve your hatred temporarily. Yin Shu laughed bitterly. I really did not expect Lu Xiuwen to be so vicious and have such wild ambitions. I am to blame for not being able to see his true colors. But, where did you pick up the sword that you took out just now? I've never seen Lu Xiuwen use it before. Yi Qingtang scanned her surroundings, and after ensuring that there was no outsider present, she said softly, I didn't even pick up that sword. I went to Lu Xiuwen's room to steal it, before I went to the disciplinary hall. Yin Shu was stunned. Steal? Yi Qingtang nodded. Lu Xiuwen must have been certain enough to dare to attack you. I know that there's no way you could win him in the disciplinary hall. So I made a trip to his room first. The blood on it was smeared using your blood-stained clothes as well. Yin Shu was completely dumbfounded. Never had he thought that Yi Qingtang would be so bold and detailed to set up this trap for Lu Xiuwen to fall in. Chapter 294. Senior brother Yin, don't worry. I will not let Lu Xiuwen off so easily. I will definitely make him personally return the Shangyue fire tripod that he stole. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes, which turned cold. At this point, Yin Shu finally realized how complicated Yi Qingtang's plan was. Ultimately, leading the warden to order a search would definitely off Lu Ziyuan's last glimmer of hope in keeping the Shangyue fire tripod. Yin Shu was extremely grateful to Yi Qingtang. If he was able to have the Shangyue fire tripod back, his future could perhaps be saved. After walking Yin Shu back, Yi Qingtang then returned to her room. Su Wan was also in the room at that time. When she saw Yi Qingtang, her eyes could not help but avert away. While Yi Qingtang did not say anything, Su Wan felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. Just a while later, she immediately left the room. Yi Qingtang saw how Su Wan left in a flurry and scoffed internally. She walked into the room and touched the silver wolf's fur, bearing this grudge in her heart. Regardless of Lu Xiaowen or the betrayer Su Wan, she would not let any off. "You're back, junior sister Yi?" Lin Long could not hold back her smile when she saw Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang said, "How do you feel, senior sister Lin?" "I've recovered a lot." Lin Long chuckled and asked, "What happened just now?" "I saw that junior sister Su's expression was not too good when she returned. And she turned even paler when you returned. Could it be that there's a conflict between you two?" Lin Long did not have any good impressions of Su Wan. Yi Qingtang scoffed. "Conflict? More like she has something to hide." Su Wan always clung on to Yin Shu eagerly and guarded against Yi Qingtang like the way one guarded against a thief. But when something happened to Yin Shu, Su Wan jumped into Lu Ziyuan's embrace instead. Now, Yi Qingtang finally realized why she heard rumors about Su Wan and Lu Xiaowen everywhere when she entered the sect in her past life. It seemed these two people must have gotten together after Yin Shu's accident. Yi Qingtang's heart turned even colder when she recalled Yin Shu's injuries. With her here in this life, she wanted to see how this adulterous pair could harm her senior brother Yin anymore. The disciplinary hall warden conducted a detailed search on the disciples who participated in the mission. Just a while after the search started, the stolen Shangyue fire tripod was secretly sent back into Yin Shu's room by the thief. The Shangyue fire tripod was returned to its owner, and the search was naturally concluded without any outcome. After recuperating for a few days, Yin Shu's condition gradually improved. On the other hand, Lu Xiaowen stayed bedridden for days after being flogged 50 strokes, and did not even have the energy to get out of bed, much less cultivate. As Yi Qingtang was appreciating the sight of Lu Xiaowen falling victim to his own evil deeds, Elder Qin and Elder Lin returned with a group of people. Yi Qingtang just finished her cultivation and felt that her spirit root was going to make a breakthrough to the orange grade in a few days. Then, a disciple passed on a message. Elder Qin of the inner sect Array faction summoned her over. Yi Qingtang's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately headed over. According to rules, ordinary outer sect disciples would not have any chance to meet the inner sect elders. Thus, the news of Yi Qingtang being summoned by the elder of the inner sect's sword faction attracted much attention. Yi Qingtang was led into the elder's hall by that disciple. The moment she stepped in, she was greeted with Elder Qin's smiling face. Disciple greets Elder Qin. Elder Qin was full of smiles. The more he saw Yi Qingtang, the more he favored her. When he thought of Elder Lin's expression, which was as ugly as though he ate dung, Elder Qin's mood turned even better. Chapter 295. Yi Qingtang, you played quite a huge role in the Deer City incident, and handing in the revolving soul orb is also a big contribution to the sect. Thus, the sect has decided to award you with 50,000 Xianming points, Elder Qin said with a smile. 50,000 Xianming points. Delight filled her when she heard this number. The hundreds of Xianming points she had on hand was already a huge asset in the outer sect. Thousands of Xianming points was simply a massive amount in the outer sect. Although Yi Qingtang was elated, she still did not forget her goal for heading to Deer City. She immediately suppressed her happiness and said, "I am very happy to receive a reward from the sect. However, I have a request to make, and I am unsure whether you will approve of it." "Oh, what is it?" Elder Qin asked curiously. Yi Qingtang replied, I wish to participate in the inner sect assessment, which takes place half a month from now. After Elder Qin heard Yi Qingtang's words, the smile on his face vanished in shock. You want to participate in the inner sect assessment, which takes place half a month from now? Astonishment was written all over Elder Qin's face. Although he felt that Yi Qingtang had a good nature, she was ultimately only a new disciple with a red spirit root. She had only entered Xianling's sect for a few months, and probably did not have a solid foundation in the outer sect. Yet she wanted to take part in Xianling's sect's inner sect assessment? Was she insane? Yes. Yi Qingtang replied firmly. There was a huge difference between the inner and outer sect, and only by entering the inner sect would she be able to narrow her distance with Yi Yu. Right before Zhou Chu died, he already pointed out that Yi Yu colluded with Xianling's sect's inner sect disciple, Ning Luo, to kill her. If she wasted any more time with the outer sect disciples, she would never be able to exact revenge on Yi Yu. Elder frowned slightly, and had a look of disapproval. Yi Qingtang, although your spirit root is inferior, you are rather intelligent. With your nature, you would still need to practice for years to enter the inner sect. Even if I make an exception, and allow you to participate in the inner sect assessment now, there is probably not much meaning. Why don't you think about it again? Elder Qin really thought highly of Yi Qingtang, but he still thought it was risky to take such rash actions. However, Yi Qingtang shook her head insistently. I don't have any other requests. I only wish for a chance to participate in the assessment. Elder Qin never expected Yi Qingtang to be this stubborn, and sighed helplessly. As a new disciple in the outer sect, you basically have no qualifications to take part in this year's inner sect assessment. If you really want to, there is also a way as well. However, you must use 30,000 Xianming points to exchange for a qualification to participate. You must think carefully. If you really want to enter the inner sect, you can wait another year, and you will not need to spend this 30,000 Xianming points. Elder Qin tried to persuade her kindly. 30,000 Xianming points was not a small amount. If Yi Qingtang was willing to give up on the inner sect assessment this time, she could save 30,000 Xianming points and use them to exchange for other items, as well as make great improvements in this 1 year. I have thought about it clearly. Please exchange it for me, Elder Qin. Elder Qin's lips twitched slightly. He had seen a stubborn person before, but never one this stubborn. This girl is too willful. Forget it. Since you're so insistent on this, I will not persuade you anymore. However, since you wish to participate in this year's assessment, you must start preparing as quickly as possible. There is a spirit consonance river in the sect. If you really want to stake everything on this attempt, you can exchange some points for a few hours of usage rights in the spirit consonance river. It is rich in spirit energy, which can accelerate your cultivation, and will be suitable for you. Chapter 296, Spirit Consonance River? Yi Qingtang did hear of this name in her previous lifetime. That was basically a land of spirit energy that only inner sect disciples could afford to use. The effects of cultivating in there were completely incomparable to cultivating in normal places. Even if one were to spend half a month cultivating in other ordinary places, it was impossible for the effect to be better than 2 hours of cultivation in the Spirit Consonance River. It was indeed a good spot to upgrade herself rapidly. Elder Qin saw that Yi Qingtang was tempted and added on immediately. However, the Spirit Consonance River is reserved for Xianling sect's inner sect disciples to use. If outer sect disciples wish to use the Spirit Consonance River, they must pay 5,000 Xianming points for every 2 hours of usage. You must think carefully. 5,000 Xianming points? Yi Qingtang was slightly shocked. It should be known that inner sect disciples only needed to pay 1,000 Xianming points for every 2 hours of usage, while outer sect disciples had to pay 5 times the amount. It could be said that the best conditions for cultivation were concentrated in the inner sect, and were simply treasures that outer sect disciples could not think of. Yi Qingtang was still at Khanate level 7, and was 2 levels away from the peak in the outer sect Khanate level 9. Her spirit root was about to improve, and if she could use the Spirit Consonance River to upgrade herself in this period of time, perhaps there was hope to successfully advance to Khanate level 9. To enter Xianling sect's inner sect, one had to be the top 3 disciples in the outer sect, and those 3 people were definitely at Khanate level 9. Yi Qingtang could only go all out if she wanted to enter Xianling sect's inner sect in the shortest time possible. I will head to the Spirit Consonance River to exchange for 6 hours of usage later, Yi Qingtang said. Elder Qin nodded slightly. Right after 50,000 Xianming points were gained, more than half of it was already spent. Subtracting the 15,000 Xianming points for the Spirit Consonance River, Yi Qingtang only had 5,000 Xianming points left. And once she entered the inner sect, her spending would become even bigger. However, Yi Qingtang would definitely not be thrifty on these matters. Earning Xianming points was to make oneself more powerful. And obviously, spending it would be useful. Thousands of Xianming points were drawn away immediately. Elder Qin's heart was complicated when he looked at Yi Qingtang. He always felt that Yi Qingtang was not like ordinary new disciples, and had always been very steady. Yet unexpectedly, she was actually very bold this time. The Xianming points have been drawn away. Half a month later, you can head for the inner sect assessment directly, Elder Qin said. Yi Qingtang nodded. After thanking Elder Qin, she left the Elder's Hall. The moment Yi Qingtang left, the Elder from the Outer Sect's Array faction walked into the Elder's Hall. He had heard everything Yi Qingtang said from a dark corner, and was similarly shocked by Yi Qingtang's wild act. Elder Qin, wasn't Yi Qingtang a little too insane? Why didn't you persuade her? The Outer Sect Elder frowned. Elder Qin shook his head helplessly. I did persuade her, but you saw the results as well. Yi Qingtang is not like ordinary disciples. She has her own plans. Although this is insane, one cannot help but be expectant. Elder Qin watched Yi Qingtang's fading back with an anticipating look. If Yi Qingtang really passes the inner sect assessment this year, many jaws would drop, commented the Outer Sect Elder. Elder Qin nodded. If she really has such an ability, I really have to pay attention to her. The two elders smiled at each other, but both thought that such a possibility was almost zero. Chapter 297. After leaving the Elder's Hall, Yi Qingtang had a plan for the future. Although over 40,000 Xianming points were spent, her heart did not ache. She made a plan for the inner sect assessment happening half a month later. There were still over 5,000 Xianming points, and perhaps it was enough for her to choose some weapons she liked in the Xianming Pavilion. At that thought, Yi Qingtang could not help but recall the sword that the young Wind Moon sect disciple dropped. Although she only used it for a while, the feel of it really amazed her. If she could obtain a similar weapon, she would have a higher chance of passing the upcoming inner sect assessment. After making up her mind, Yi Qingtang headed to the Xianming Pavilion straight away. There were countless rare and valuable items in the Xianming Pavilion. Anything one could think of could be obtained in this pavilion, and as long as one had enough Xianming points to pay, they could acquire the items they liked. In her previous life, Yi Qingtang never went to the Xianming Pavilion. Most of the Xianming points that she accumulated with great difficulty were used to exchange for Shi Spirit pills, and she did not have any extra Xianming points to spend in the Xianming Pavilion. There were quite a few disciples in the Xianming Pavilion at that time, and everyone was searching for a treasure they were attracted to. The moment Yi Qingtang entered the Xianming Pavilion, she saw a familiar figure. Junior sister Yi. Dai Changming was in the pavilion with a handsome youth, and came up to greet Yi Qingtang when he suddenly saw her walking in. Senior brother Dai. Yi Qingtang nodded as she took a casual glance at the youth beside Dai Changming. The youth had thick eyebrows and beautiful eyes. He was extremely good-looking, and had a remarkable disposition. While he was standing aside silently, his extraordinary charisma was unable to be concealed. Ji Xianyuan? Yi Qingtang raised a brow slightly. The man beside Dai Changming was called Ji Xianyuan. When Yi Qingtang entered Xianling sect in her previous lifetime, Ji Xianyuan was already an inner sect disciple. Moreover, he had superb endowments and was thought highly of by the elders. Are you here to exchange for treasures as well? What a coincidence. I'm here today with senior brother Ji to collect a spirit animal, Dai Changming said with a smile. Because of the Deer City incident previously, Dai Changming felt a sense of gratitude towards Yi Qingtang. Ji Xianyuan from aside scanned Yi Qingtang without any emotions. The Xianming Pavilion was divided into 9 areas, and the items that could be exchanged in each area were different. Some areas had spirit pills and miraculous herbs, while others had rare treasures and spirit animals. Divine weapons were all the more in great quantities, and even some mystic techniques scriptures could be found here. However, it was just that the number of Xianming points required was huge, and there were few outer sect disciples who had the ability to exchange for these treasures. The sight could not help but pique the curiosity of other disciples in the pavilion. Dai Changming was the 10th elite disciple on the ranking charts, while Ji Xianyuan, whom everyone knew, was ranked first in the outer sect and topped the ranking chart. These two people could be said to have a certain influence in the outer sect, and they rarely interacted with other disciples. Yet unexpectedly, one of them actually initiated a conversation with this young new disciple today. It is a coincidence indeed. Yi Qingtang chuckled. As they were speaking, the warden of Xianming Pavilion walked over with a huge metal cage being pushed out by 2 workers behind him. Once everyone saw that metal cage, gasps erupted. Chapter 298. In the metal cage was a giant lion, which was moving about in the cage irritably. Under the light, its golden fur was exceptionally dazzling. Its 4 strong paws revealed sharp claws which could easily tear everything apart. Ji Xianyuan, this is the scorching sun lion cub that you ordered, the warden said to Ji Xianyuan. All the disciples were dumbfounded. The scorching sun lion was famous for its ferocity and had extremely high combat ability. The scorching sun lion in the metal cage was near 2 meters tall and 3 meters long, giving off a majestic appearance. However, this was still a cub. A grown scorching sun lion had a body as large as a small hill, and its bite was powerful enough to break a thick slab of steel. Ordinary disciples could barely take a glimpse of the scorching sun lion, much less catch one as a spirit pet. Yet unexpectedly, Ji Xianyuan actually exchanged one in the Xianming Pavilion. This scorching sun lion cub is seriously so majestic. If I get one, my future missions would be way easier to handle. You want to get one? Do you know how many Xianming points are needed to exchange for that scorching sun lion cub? The price starts from 10,000. Just drop the idea already. Starts from 10,000. The disciples were startled by this shocking number. 4 outer sect disciples like them. The number of Xianming points they obtained from missions were already insufficient for their usual usage. How could they save up thousands of Xianming points? Senior brother Ji actually has so many Xianming points. I've been in the sect for 3 years, and all my Xianming points added up isn't even this much. That is senior brother Ji, the first in the outer sect, who is even on par with some inner sect disciples. He can kill the first 100 villains on the assassination roll by himself. How can you compare to him? The disciples were extremely envious and drooled at the majestic scorching sun lion cub. There were no emotions on Ji Xianyuan's face as he received the scorching sun lion cub after taking a look at it. After obtaining the spirit pet, Ji Xianyuan had no intention of staying any longer and gave Dai Changming a look. Dai Changming immediately said to Yi Qingtang, "Junior sister Yi, we will head back first." Yi Qingtang nodded as she glanced at the scorching sun lion cub. A few years later, this scorching sun lion cub was raised by Ji Xianyuan to be extremely fierce, and it even had a ranking in the inner sect. However, such a spirit pet which exhausted one's Xianming points was not what ordinary disciples could exchange for. As the top of the ranking chart, Ji Xianyuan's abilities were naturally not to be underestimated. Ji Xianyuan and Dai Changming led the scorching sun lion cub out of Xianming Pavilion, and the onlooking disciples finally dispersed. Though they were very envious, they were well aware that they had no fate with this baby worth over 10,000 Xianming points. Yi Qingtang walked to the weapon area alone. There were many weapons displayed at the weapon area. From swords and bludgeons to bows and spears, everything was here. Yi Qingtang scanned through the weapons. When the warden saw Yi Qingtang and noticed her face, his eyes twinkled. This morning, there was news from the inner sect that a new disciple from the outer sect obtained a generous amount of Xianming points, And a portrait of that disciple was sent over as well. Was it not just this lady before his eyes? Chapter 299. What do you wish to look at? The warden asked with a rare smile. Yi Qingtang was slightly surprised but replied quickly, I wish to find a weapon that I like. The warden scanned through the weapons displayed, of which each had labels indicating the price of over 100 Xianming points. Is there anything you like from here? Yi Qingtang shook her head. A smile emerged in the warden's eyes as he opened the cabinet at the back. The moment the cabinet was opened, the glistening weapons caught the eyes of many disciples, and everyone stretched their necks over, wanting to find out what exactly was happening. It should be known that there was nothing special about the items on display in the Xianming Pavilion. The real treasures were carefully kept away by the warden, and one would not even have a chance to see it if their Xianming points were insufficient. The warden took out a sword from the cabinet and placed it in front of Yi Qingtang. What do you think of this sword? The warden asked with a smile. He knew that Yi Qingtang obtained 50,000 Xianming points as a reward, and thus took out treasures to recommend generously. Yi Qingtang saw a huge dragon carved on the golden scabbard of the sword. Her eyes twinkled. The sword had not been removed from its scabbard, but it already took her breath away. Clearly, it was of a totally different level from the weapons displayed outside. The warden saw the awestruck expression in Yi Qingtang's eyes, and immediately drew the sword out. The moment the sword was removed from its scabbard, a dragon roar was heard, and a light suddenly blinded everyone's eyes. This sword is called the Dragon Spring Sword. It is made using first-class cold iron. The warden drew a few strokes using the sword, and although he waved the sword casually, the flashes and shadows of the sword blurred everyone's vision. Not bad, Yi Qingtang said to the point. The warden flashed a smile, and then kept the sword back into its scabbard. This is nothing. There are even better ones. Then, the warden turned around and took out another sword from the cabinet. The sword was just placed before Yi Qingtang, but she already felt a warm air surging towards her. There was an image of a flame engraved on the scabbard, and it was as though the sword was wrapped in a ball of flame. Yi Qingtang's eyes brightened. The warden said, Usually disciples are not allowed to touch these swords, but I'll make an exception today. You can try it out. Afterward, he pushed the sword towards Yi Qingtang. The surrounding disciples gathered around her instinctively. The consecutive treasure swords being taken out had already attracted everyone's attention, and their eyes were glued on when they saw the scarlet sword. How could they be bothered about anything else anymore? Yi Qingtang held the sword. The moment the sword was in her hands, she felt a warm sensation in her palms. A confused expression flashed across her eyes as she drew the sword out of its scabbard. In an instant, it was as if a ball of flames surged out from the scabbard. The scarlet sword in Yi Qingtang's hand had a faint red glimmer around the entire sword. Blazing flame sword. Is that the blazing flame sword? Am I seeing things? A disciple could not help but gasp when he saw the red glimmer on the sword. You can't be talking about the blazing flame sword that the fire monarch used back then, right? Apart from that sword, what else can it be? Back then, the fire monarch used this blazing flame sword to exterminate all the traitors. I did not expect that this blazing flame sword was actually in our sect. Chapter 300. The disciples really widened their horizons today. The treasures that outer sect disciples like them saw in the Xianming Pavilion were only the tip of the iceberg, and being able to see the legendary blazing flame sword today really astonished them. Yi Qingtang looked at the blazing flame sword in her hand with twinkling eyes. Although she felt that this sword was really good, the sword had a fire nature and was rather unsuitable for her. The warden sharply sensed the regret that passed Yi Qingtang's eyes and raised a brow. He thought that Yi Qingtang was perhaps still unsatisfied. Thinking of the 50,000 Xianming points in her hands, he made up his mind and walked to the cabinet beside. He stretched his hand to take down a dusty, long brocade box from the top of the cabinet. Although that blazing flame sword is good, it does not hold a candle to this item. A truly good item is laying inside this box. As he spoke, he lightly knocked on the brocade box that had been tightly shut for a long time, while looking at Yi Qingtang meaningfully. With that said, many disciples were attracted over. To them, the blazing flame sword was already extremely precious. Yet the warden actually said that the item in the box was 100 times more precious than the blazing flame sword. What exactly was it? How could it be this powerful? The disciples widened their eyes at that moment, fearful that they would miss out on the chance to see an unparalleled divine weapon, should they be the slightest distracted. Yi Qingtang was at a loss of whether to cry or laugh when she saw the warden's behavior, and speculated that he was aware of her net worth, for him to show her 3 treasures so generously. The warden slowly opened the box in front of everyone. He only lifted the lid a little, but a cold air quietly seeped out through that small gap. Yi Qingtang's eyes dilated slightly in shock. She faintly sensed an unusual aura being slowly emitted out from the brocade box. As the brocade box was opened, the surrounding disciples widened their eyes as well, wanting to see what kind of rare treasure was being kept in it. When the brocade box was fully opened, everyone was taken aback by its content. In the simple and gorgeous brocade box laid an unattractive long black sword. Its scabbard was made using an uncertain material, which caused its dull appearance. Compared to the previous dragon spring sword and the blazing flame sword, the sword in the box seemed rather old. What is this sword? There seems to be nothing special about it. A disciple could not help but mumble. The warden looked up and scoffed at that mumbling disciple. Nothing special? The disciple looked down, not daring to utter another sentence. The warden looked back down at the black sword, and slowly took it out from the brocade box. Yi Qingtang noticed that when the warden held the sword, the cold air lingering around the black sword gradually crept up to the warden's hand. The warden looked at the black sword, and then at Yi Qingtang. Have you heard of Qi Shui, the invincible slayer? Yi Qingtang was stunned. Qi Shui, the invincible slayer? The warden smiled. 100 years ago, Qi Shui was born, and he was named the Slayer, as there was bloodshed everywhere he went. Many mighty figures were slaughtered by him, and their skulls were hung on his carriage. Death was in the air for a century. The sword he used is called the demonic blood sword, and is one of the rare demonic weapons on earth. Chapter 301. As the warden spoke slowly, the cold air which extended up his hand caused his hand to lose color. He quickly put the black sword back into the brocade box, and looked at that disciple who spoke carelessly. You actually said that there is nothing special about the demonic blood sword of the invincible slayer, Qi Shui? If it were 100 years ago, you would have been slaughtered by this demonic blood sword. That disciple felt a chill down his spine. Never would he have expected that the old and simplistic black sword would actually be the legendary demonic blood sword. Even after 100 years later, the name Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, still circulated in the world. The thought of his heinous, bloody crimes was enough to cause goosebumps. Many outer sect disciples, at least 9,000, like that disciple died under the demonic blood sword. Compared to Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, the owner of the previous blazing flame sword was simply nothing. Yi Qingtang stared at the demonic blood sword which was laying in the brocade box. Although she had not touched it for herself, she could already feel a fierce demonic air radiating from the sword such that the surrounding temperature dropped. This demonic blood sword is very precious, and its price is immeasurable. In the Xianming Pavilion, it would require at least 100,000 Xianming points, the warden said. 100,000. The disciples' jaws fell upon hearing such an expensive price. 100,000 Xianming points. Even if they were given 10 years, they would not be able to save up that amount. Yi Qingtang was slightly taken aback as well. Compared to the blazing flame sword and dragon spring sword, this demonic blood sword gave her a completely different feeling. So much that she felt an impulse the moment when she saw it. She needed this sword. The warden took in everyone's shocked expressions and scoffed quietly. Then he turned to face the rather shocked Yi Qingtang and said, "This is a good sword, and it lives up to the price of 100,000 Xianming points." However, the warden spoke from another perspective. Although this sword is good, its demonic blood aura is too strong, and the user might be counterattacked by the demonic aura if careless. Thus, this sword only costs 40,000 now. The warden took this demonic blood sword out, because he had already found out the number of Xianming points Yi Qingtang had. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. 40,000? The number of Xianming points that she could use now was only 5,000. The warden saw Yi Qingtang furrowing her brows, and thought that she was worried about the demonic blood aura on the sword. Although there is a demonic blood aura on the sword, it has been many years, and a person whose mind is firm enough would not be counterattacked. It is definitely a steal to exchange this sword, that is worth 100,000 Xianming points, for just 40,000 Xianming points. This is a rare opportunity. The warden tried to entice Yi Qingtang, wanting to sell the demonic blood sword away as quickly as possible. Yi Qingtang looked at the demonic blood sword. Others were afraid that they might be counterattacked by the demonic blood sword, but she had no reason to worry at all. The heart of the demon god in her was the ultimate demonic object in the world. No matter how strong the demonic aura was, as long as the heart of the demon god was present, there was no possibility of being counterattacked. Moreover, the demonic blood sword with suppressed demonic blood aura was more than suitable for Yi Qingtang. As what the warden said, 40,000 Xianming points was extremely worth it, and it could be said that it was an extreme steal. It was just that. Where was she to obtain 40,000 Xianming points from? Chapter 302. Yi Qingtang still thought that the remaining 5,000 Xianming points was enough for her to splurge. Yet, the price of a random sword she fancied was insanely high. This Xianming pavilion was indeed not a place that normal disciples could afford to purchase things from. 40,000 Xianming points was simply an unfathomable amount to outer sect disciples. All the disciples were, similarly, astounded by this price. Although the item was precious, and could be considered to be of supreme grade, this price was still so expensive. How can outer sect disciples like us afford it? This is clearly prepared for inner sect disciples. Some outer sect disciples could not help but lament sourly. The cultivation conditions in the inner sect were originally better than the outer sects, and the inner sect disciples were more skilled, and hence could take on rewarded missions that gave greater rewards. Although they knew that their abilities could not be compared to the inner sect disciples, they were bound to be bitter and envious when they saw good items, which they had no chance of obtaining. The warden glanced at the disciples and said without emotion, "It is not that there's no chance at all. If you want to exchange some treasures in Xianming Pavilion, using Xianming points is not the only method. What other methods are there?" The disciples were immediately on alert. The warden smiled. "If you all can obtain first place in the inner sect assessment, you can choose any item priced below 50,000 Xianming points in the Xianming Pavilion regardless of whether it is a weapon, spirit pet, or mystic technique scroll. As long as you have the abilities, there is a chance for you to obtain it directly." The warden's words were like a pail of ice water that instantly extinguished the disciples' newly arose enthusiasm. First in the inner sect entrance assessment? Forget it. They could not even enter the ranking charts, much less placing first in the inner sect assessment. Just thinking of the skills of Ji Xianyuan, who was currently ranked first in the ranking charts, everyone dropped the idea. Senior brother Ji is at the peak of Khanate level 9 right now, and is only a step away from the martial chi stage. There is almost no difference between him and the inner sect disciples. Who can defeat him? In everyone's eyes, Ji Xianyuan was sure to place first in the inner sect entrance assessment, and there was no difference between having a chance to exchange for a good item in the Xianming Pavilion or not. As everyone sighed dejectedly, Yi Qingtang took these words to heart. Her eyes narrowed slightly and twinkled as she looked at the demonic blood sword. To enter the inner sect, she had to be the top 3 in the inner sect assessment, and if she wanted to obtain this demonic blood sword without spending any Xianming points, the only way was to place first. The warden did not bother with those outer sect disciples at all, and only promoted the demonic blood sword to Yi Qingtang. Yet he did not know that Yi Qingtang only had 5,000 Xianming points currently. How is it? This demonic blood sword is pretty good, isn't it? The warden laughed. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly. Just as the warden thought Yi Qingtang would exchange for the demonic blood sword, Yi Qingtang suddenly turned and left. The warden was a little dumbfounded. What was going on? She clearly liked it a lot. Yet why did she leave just like that? The warden was extremely confused. But Yi Qingtang's decision to become stronger was increasingly resolute. Regardless of entering the inner sect or obtaining that demonic blood sword, Yi Qingtang was bent on achieving them. Rather than wasting time here, it was better to exchange for the usage rights of the Spirit Consonance River, as only that would truly increase her abilities. Peak of Khanate level 9. Yi Qingtang frowned as she walked out of the Xianming Pavilion. She was only at Khanate level 7 right now, and if she did not break through to Khanate level 9 in the coming half a month, there would be simply no chance of winning. Chapter 303. The Spirit Consonance River was the spot richest in spirit energy in Xianling sect, and was the main area where inner sect disciples spent Xianming points on. In her previous lifetime, Yi Qingtang went to the Spirit Consonance River once before. Although it was only a brief 2 hours of cultivation, the effects were extremely astonishing. It was already so amazing when she did not have a spirit root that time. And now with a spirit root, it would go without saying that the effects would be even greater. However, although the Spirit Consonance River was good, inner sect disciples were required to pay 1,000 Xianming points for 2 hours of usage, and there were not many who could afford to use it. Yi Qingtang passed through a long aisle and reached the entrance of the Spirit Consonance River, which was situated at the back. Since teaching wardens were still giving lessons at this time, there were few disciples in the Spirit Consonance River, and only a handful of inner sect disciples walked out of the Spirit Consonance River. The warden outside the Spirit Consonance River saw someone coming and instinctively looked up. However, there was a look of surprise on his face immediately, as he found it a little strange to see the young lady before him. Disciple Yi Qingtang is here to exchange for the Spirit Consonance River's usage rights. Yi Qingtang went forward and reported her identity. Yi Qingtang. The warden frowned slightly as this name was foreign to him. He scanned Yi Qingtang and asked, "Are you an outer sect disciple?" This question attracted the attention of other inner sect disciples, who could not help but look at Yi Qingtang in surprise. Outer sect disciple? Is this a joke? Even outer sect disciples dare to exchange for the Spirit Consonance River's usage rights now. An inner sect disciple could not help but size up Yi Qingtang. The warden frowned more deeply. He had managed the Spirit Consonance River for many years, and the number of outer sect disciples who exchanged for usage rights could be counted with a hand. Although the Spirit Consonance River was open to the entire sect, this girl. The warden lifted his chin slightly and spoke to Yi Qingtang impatiently. "Are you sure? The usage rights for the Spirit Consonance River is 1,000 Xianming points. If you are an outer sect disciple, you will need to pay 5 times that amount, totaling to 5,000 Xianming points. Do you really want to exchange?" The few inner sect disciples snickered at the warden's words. Even inner sect disciples like them felt a pinch when spending 1,000 Xianming points to use the Spirit Consonance River. If outer sect disciples wanted to use the Spirit Consonance River, they had to pay 5 times the amount. And even if there were some outer sect elites who could afford 5,000 Xianming points, no one dared to squander like that. This outer sect junior sister must have been unaware of the difference between the outer sect and inner sect, and thought that she only needed to spend 1,000 Xianming points to enter the Spirit Consonance River. Yi Qingtang ignored the stares and said, "Yes, I am sure." The warden frowned and asked coldly, "How many hours do you want to exchange for then?" 6 hours. Yi Qingtang replied. The moment she said that, the warden's face was full of surprise. 6 hours? That would require 15,000 Xianming points. How could this disciple have so many? The few inner sect disciples were a little bewildered as well. She spent 15,000 Xianming points at one go. Even inner sect disciples like them did not dare to take this move. Was this little junior sister an idiot? "You have 15,000 Xianming points." The warden evidently did not believe her. Chapter 304. Yi Qingtang did not say anything as she stretched her hand with the Xianming points bracelet to the warden. The warden looked at that bracelet doubtingly, and attempted to draw the number of Xianming points required away. In the end, 15,000 Xianming points were instantly drawn away. The warden could not help but be taken aback. She really has so many points. Is it done? Yi Qingtang asked as she placed her hand down, after seeing 15,000 Xianming points being drawn away. The warden fell into a trance, and only returned to his senses sometime later. Yes. A few inner sect disciples heard the warden's words, and their eyes almost popped out. This junior sister from the outer sect really had 15,000 Xianming points. The warden handed Yi Qingtang a waste tablet, and finally allowed her in. Until Yi Qingtang entered the Spirit Consonance River, the warden still could not understand where this outer sect disciple got so many Xianming points, while the inner sect disciples still had incredulous expressions on their faces. When did the outer sect produce such a crazy disciple, who would actually use 5 times the price to use the Spirit Consonance River? So what if she used it? Her foundation is not stable, and it will not be easy to gain great advancements, the inner sect disciples mumbled as they left. Passing through the Spirit Consonance River entrance, and stepping on the layers of clouds, one could hear the sound of flowing water in the vast expanse of white mist. A glistening stream appeared before Yi Qingtang's eyes. The entire Spirit Consonance River was 1,000 meters long, winding between the clouds. Its aquamarine river was sparkling with tiny ripples, and threads of mist drifted above the river. At the bottom of the Spirit Consonance River were shiny gemstones embedded on the riverbed. As the river flowed, strong spirit energy was produced. Before Yi Qingtang entered the Spirit Consonance River, she already felt the surging spirit energy. Yi Qingtang took a step into the clear river, and a warm sensation immediately passed through her clothes and spread all over her body. Her body was clearly in the Spirit Consonance River, but her clothes were not wet at all. Her skin could clearly feel the river water brushing past her. But when she raised her hand, the sleeve that was previously soaked in the water was completely dry. At that time of the day, the Spirit Consonance River was empty, and only Yi Qingtang was in it. She looked at the end of the river flow, and caught sight of a cascading spring at the semicircle river bank. Yi Qingtang's eyes brightened instantly, and she headed towards the spring without hesitation. The Spirit Consonance River was not deep, and only reached Yi Qingtang's waist. Thus, there was no resistance when walking in the water. There was an abundance of spirit energy throughout the entire Spirit Consonance River, but the richest spot was the spring at the end of the river. Yi Qingtang had only gone to the Spirit Consonance River once in her previous life, but heard some rumors about the Spirit Consonance River. The spring was the richest in spirit energy, and had double the amount of spirit energy in other parts of the river. However, not anyone had the luck to go there. On usual days, the inner sect elites would head there early and hog the best spots. Yi Qingtang felt that she was pretty lucky today. There was not a soul here, and she would naturally not stand on ceremony. Chapter 305. When Yi Qingtang was near the spring, she could already feel wildly surging spirit energy penetrating into her body continuously. In just a short moment, the spirit root in her abdomen was burning hot and overflowing with spirit energy. Was the spirit root going to level up? Delight filled her. She had a premonition that she would definitely break through to have an orange spirit root if she stayed here for 2 hours. Even though it was only an orange spirit root, it was extremely precious to the current Yi Qingtang. As long as her spirit root succeeded in advancing 1 level up, there was hope for her in the future. At that thought, Yi Qingtang immediately calmed her heart down and directed her energy, allowing the constant flow of spirit energy to circulate around her whole body for her use. As Yi Qingtang cleared her mind and started cultivating, a few inner sect disciples entered the Spirit Consonance River one after another. Senior brother Hu, I heard that you killed one of the top 100 villains on the assassination roll a few days ago. You must have gained quite a large number of Xianming points, haven't you? Not much. It is only enough to exchange for a one-time usage right for the Spirit Consonance River. You only beheaded a level 7 demonic beast last month. If I were you, it would be better if you don't touch those demonic beasts. It is a waste of time and energy, and not many Xianming points can be exchanged from it. I only happened to meet it on a sect mission, so I killed it on convenience. The few inner sect disciples calmed their hearts and started their cultivation after chatting a bit. The usage rights for the Spirit Consonance River were rather expensive, and they did not wish to waste any time. To an inner sect disciple, a level 7 demonic beast was only a creature which could be conveniently killed. Yet Gu Yanqiu and the rest, who were considered the elites in the outer sect, required a team effort of 10 people to attack a level 6 giant lizard. Clearly, the wideness of the gap between the inner sect and outer sect was unimaginable. Yi Qingtang cultivated with her mind at peace, treating their chatter as a fleeting breeze. At that time, 3 inner sect disciples entered the Spirit Consonance River together, and the faces of the other inner sect disciples changed when they saw these 3 people. Everyone instinctively looked at the 3 at the end of the Spirit Consonance River, and their expressions became even weirder when they saw a tiny figure. Senior Brother Song, I am still not too familiar with the swordplay technique that the elder taught yesterday. Could you give me some guidance later? One of the 3 disciples looked at the youth, who was walking in the middle. That swordplay technique is not difficult. It is just that the quality of your sword is too lousy. We will see when you exchange for a sword worth thousands in the Xianming Pavilion, the youth in the middle said with an arrogant expression. That disciple nodded. He looked straight ahead and was startled to see Yi Qingtang at the spring. Senior Brother Song, someone stole your cultivation spot. That disciple uttered hurriedly. Song Juanxiu frowned slightly and looked to his front. Indeed, there was an extremely foreign-looking girl cultivating at the spring. His expression turned unhappy instantly. Where did this person come from? How could she not know Senior Brother Song's rule of cultivating there for 2 hours every 3rd day of the week before noon break? How dare she snatch the spot? Another disciple chipped in dissatisfaction. Song Juanxiu did not say anything and headed to the spring directly. Yi Qingtang felt that her spirit root contained sufficient spirit energy and was about to break through to an orange spirit root very soon, but she suddenly heard a piercing voice. Where did this freaking girl who doesn't keep to the rules come from? This spot is reserved by my senior brother Song. Quickly make way. Chapter 306. Yi Qingtang furrowed her brows. It was clearly the critical moment for her spirit root to make a breakthrough, but she had to hear such curses. She immediately opened her eyes and looked at that person. Other inner sect disciples cultivating in the Spirit Consonance River looked over immediately. What is your name? Why are you not following the rules? A disciple reproached. Rules? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes and glanced over at the faces of the 3 uninvited people. When she saw Song Junqia's face, she could not help but scoff internally. She thought who it could be, but it was Song Juanxiu. In her previous life when she entered the inner sect, she had heard of Song Junqia's name before. Song Juanxiu was the son of an inner sect warden, and thus had a certain position of influence in the inner sect. Although his natural endowment was not bad, he was domineering. She had heard that Song Juanxiu would head to the Spirit Consonance River at a stipulated timing and hog the spring which was the richest with spirit energy, yet she did not expect to cross paths with him today. The 2 disciples beside Song Juanxiu sized up Yi Qingtang with a frown. When they noticed that her clothes did not have an inner sect embroidery, they were shocked. I was wondering what kind of person did not know the rules and didn't expect that it actually be an outer sect trash, a disciple said. Song Juanxiu glimpsed at Yi Qingtang as well, and his expression became even uglier after confirming that Yi Qingtang was only an outer sect disciple. An outer sect disciple actually dared to snatch his cultivation spot. Move away, Song Juanxiu said coldly with a grim expression. Yi Qingtang scoffed coldly. On what basis? Song Junqia's face turned even uglier. On usual days, all the outer sect disciples were reverent and respectful towards inner sect disciples like them. Yet, unexpectedly, this person did not know what was good for her. This is my spot. It is not a place that an outer sect disciple like you can step in carelessly. Song Juanxiu lifted his chin, and a belittling expression passed his eyes. Other onlooking disciples had surprised expressions as well. They did not notice that the girl was actually an outer sect disciple. It should be known that there were hardly any outer sect disciples in the Spirit Consonance River, and they had already taken this place as an exclusive right for the inner sect. Yet unexpectedly, an outer sect disciple was actually here, and she even unluckily took Song Junqia's territory. Song Juanxiu had some connections in the inner sect, and even inner sect disciples would try not to get into conflicts with him. However, this outer sect disciple seemed to not know Song Junqia's capabilities and dared to talk back to him. Was she seeking death? Your spot. Yi Qingtang laughed and glanced at the clear spring. Then, she looked up and tilted her head at Song Juanxiu, who was throwing his weight around. Is your name written or an image of you carved here? Why is it yours? How dare you? You're an outer sect disciple. Yet how dare you speak to senior brother Song like this? A disciple exclaimed. Yi Qingtang looked at him coldly. There was not a slight trace of fear on her face. Song Juanxiu shot a cold glare at Yi Qingtang and scoffed. What a sharp tongue. What is your name? Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang. Song Juanxiu said, and looked at Yi Qingtang coldly. You are an outer sect disciple. How can you be compared to inner sect disciples like us? It is already your blessing to be able to enter the Spirit Consonance River. If you continue to ask for more, you really don't know what is good for you. Chapter 307. If you know what is good for you, get lost quickly. Don't taint my spot. Song Juanxiu said rudely with a clear hint of annoyance. This senior brother is really funny. The Spirit Consonance River is provided for all Xianling sect disciples to use. And since when was any spot set out for a disciple? If you want this area in the spring, you can come earlier. Yi Qingtang was not affected by Song Junqia's threats at all. Song Junqia's face darkened instantly, and his eyes turned shockingly cold. He had never seen such an ignorant outer sect disciple before. This person was really heedless of consequences. Don't be shameless. Senior brother Song said all this to give you face. Do you believe we will just throw you straight out? You, a mere outer sect disciple, dare to hog the best spot in the Spirit Consonance River? What a joke. Another disciple shouted in intimidation. The other onlooking inner sect disciples quietly shook their heads at that sight. It was simply overreaching one's ability for an outer sect disciple to contend with an inner sect disciple. Any one of those three people could easily kill Yi Qingtang. Where did she find the boldness to fight with Song Juanxiu head-on? Throw me out. Yi Qingtang suddenly laughed. With narrowed eyes, she swept a glance across the three people, and her curled lips formed a scoff. Why? Do you all wish to fight in the Spirit Consonance River? Yi Qingtang's tone turned colder. You all spent Xianming points to enter the Spirit Consonance River, and so did I. Plus, I spent 5 times what you all paid. What gives you the right to shout at me here? I want to ask the Spirit Consonance River Warden whether there is such a rule in Xianling sect, where inner sect disciples can disregard the sect rules, do whatever they want, and oppress fellow disciples. Yi Qingtang's forceful voice crushed the silent Spirit Consonance River. The surrounding inner sect disciples were dumbfounded. Never had they expected this outer sect disciple to be so bold. Not only was she not fearful when facing 3 inner sect disciples, she even brought up the sect rules so rationally, and they were very clear that there was no error in what Yi Qingtang said. The Spirit Consonance River was originally opened for all disciples to use. Although inner sect disciples use it more frequently, outer sect disciples had to pay 5 times the number of Xianming points should they want to use it. They themselves were pressed for Xianming points to use the Spirit Consonance River. How much did this outer sect disciple go through to be able to exchange for the usage rights? Song Junqia's face turned red. He never expected this outer sect disciple to actually be so daring. However, in consideration of what Yi Qingtang said about notifying the warden, he did not dare to mess with her. The Spirit Consonance River's rules were not his to decide. If Yi Qingtang really lodged a complaint, he would definitely be the one in trouble. Song Juanxiu sneered. I'll let the spring to you today. Let's see what a mere outer sect disciple can achieve after obtaining the best spot. Then, Song Juanxiu immediately turned around and headed to another area with his people. Song Juanxiu suddenly stopped halfway and turned over to look at Yi Qingtang, who was at the spring. Junior sister Yi, I wish you success in passing the intersect assessment as soon as possible. I will definitely return today's gift back to you. Chapter 308. Afterward, Song Juanxiu walked away without looking back. The two disciples following beside Song Juanxiu saw this and murmured, Senior brother Song thought too highly of her already. It is simply a fool's talk for her to enter the inner sect. Song Juanxiu scoffed. If she can't enter the inner sect, well, treat it as that she has good luck. If she enters the inner sect, Song Juanxiu narrowed his eyes into slits, and a vicious look flashed across his eyes. The two disciples beside him made eye contact and understood what Song Juanxiu was thinking of. After chasing Song Juanxiu and the rest away, Yi Qingtang calmed her heart once again. The urge for the spirit root to break through which stopped just now continued to build up again, and the warm sensation surged into her abdomen rapidly. Spirit energy lingered around the spirit root and nourished it without a sound. Suddenly, Yi Qingtang felt an unusual burn at the area where her spirit root was, and subsequently, her body temperature rose up. A flow of hot air seemed to rush up from her abdomen to the top of her skull. Instinctively, Yi Qingtang used all her energy and suppressed that intense heat, not allowing it to spread to other areas. As the temperature rose bit by bit, her face turned from white to red. In the spirit consonance river, the faint red light at her abdomen area gradually turned orange. Orange spirit root. Yi Qingtang immediately held her breath. The transformation of the spirit root caused the heat around her body to vanish immediately, and she could clearly sense that the spirit root in her body was completely reborn. From red spirit root to orange spirit root, Yi Qingtang took a few months, and this breakthrough happened to resolve one of her biggest worries. Although it was still an orange spirit root now, as long as her spirit root could be upgraded, in the future, it would be possible to achieve a yellow spirit root, green spirit root, and even the blue spirit root that was stolen from her. Overwhelmed with joy, she took a deep breath to forcefully suppress her excitement. She always felt that there were traces of her spirit root making a breakthrough previously, but never managed to reach the last step. However, the rich spirit energy in the spirit consonance river gave her the finishing push. Yi Qingtang could feel that when her spirit root transformed, her abilities had also advanced to the peak of Khanate level 8 from the previous Khanate level 7. In just 2 hours, she actually advanced one entire level. This was simply not what ordinary people dared to think of. 15,000 Xianming points could exchange for such a massive improvement. This was more than worth it to her. The last hint of heartache vanished into thin air at that moment. Yi Qingtang did not spend too much time on improving her spirit root. She only had 6 hours, and once it was over, it would be impossible for her to gather enough Xianming points to cultivate here again in a short span of time. Immediately, Yi Qingtang calmed her heart down and directed her energy all over her body, as though she wished to absorb even more in this short 6 hours. 6 hours passed in the blink of an eye. When Yi Qingtang opened her eyes, there were no other disciples in the spirit consonance river anymore. Yi Qingtang's time in the spirit consonance river was up, and she could only leave. The gains today satisfied her fully. There was still half a month before the intersect assessment, and she must reach Khanate level 9 in this period of time. Otherwise, the probability of winning against the top 3 elites on the ranking chart was too small. In the next few weeks, Yi Qingtang was absorbed in an almost mad cultivation. Chapter 309. She, who usually rubbed the silver wolf's fur and teased the little lightning dragon, was completely focused on cultivation. The little lightning dragon, which was heavily injured from the spirit condensation mountain village incident, was shoved to the silver wolf to take care of it. The silver wolf looked coldly at the little lightning dragon, which was forcefully shoved to his paw. However, the little lightning dragon was trembling in fear, and before the silver wolf even took a glimpse at it, it immediately fainted by the silver wolf's paw. That morning, Yi Qingtang washed up and prepared to head to the martial arts hall to cultivate. When she reached the entrance of the martial arts hall, she suddenly saw a pale Yin Shu. Senior brother Yin? Your injuries have not fully recovered. Why are you out already? Yi Qingtang was a little surprised. Yin Shu smiled faintly. Thank you for worrying about me. My injuries are not serious anymore. It is all thanks to you for helping me to obtain the Shangyue fire tripod back. I used it to cultivate for many days, and my spirit root recovered. I am out for a stretch today. The injuries Yin Shu sustained previously almost caused him to drop the idea of cultivation. If not for Yi Qingtang's plot for Lu Xiuwen to automatically return the Shangyue fire tripod, it would really be difficult for him to find a way out. Really? That's good then. Yi Qingtang smiled earnestly. Yin Shu's fall in her previous life had always been a sore point for her. If she could witness him overcoming the disaster and pulling himself together in this lifetime, she would be relieved. As they were talking, Su Wan and a few other disciples walked past. The moment Su Wan saw Yi Qingtang and Yin Shu, her face turned a little pale, and she looked away instinctively. Junior sister Su, do you know that there were many shocking incidents in the outer sect recently? Lu Yu, who was walking beside Su Wan, did not notice Yi Qingtang and Yin Shu and spoke her mind. What incidents? Su Wan asked. A few days ago, Elder Huang from the outer sect's sword faction accepted an amazing genius from the Tianfu family clan called Yuan Wei. I heard that Yuan Wei has a green spirit root, and his natural endowments were brilliant. The Tianfu family clan devoted much effort to raise him into an extremely skilled person. Lu Yu replied. A disciple who was walking with them was suddenly energetic. Yuan Wei from the Tianfu family clan? I've heard of him before. Although he did not enter a sect previously, he had a mighty figure as his master. He is highly skilled, and is very famous in the Dongqing area, where the Tianfu family clan was at. People said he is a rare genius in Dongqing. Obviously, if he did not have the skills, why would Elder Huang make an exception to accept him into the outer sect? I even heard that Elder Huang thought very highly of him. Not only did Elder Huang accept Yuan Wei as a disciple, but Elder Huang also made an exception to allow Yuan Wei to participate in the inner sect assessment this year. Lu Yu chipped in. He just entered the sect, but can participate in the inner sect assessment? He must be really powerful. If the rumors are true and Yuan Wei is able to enter the top 10 in the ranking charts in the inner sect assessment this year, his future is really limitless. Lu Yu nodded. Just as she was to say something to Su Wan, she suddenly saw Su Wan's stiff expression. Lu Yu instinctively looked around, and suddenly saw Yi Qingtang and Yin Shu. Immediately Lu Yu scoffed. However, that is not considered a shocking incident. In the outer sect of Xianling sect, there is still another shocking incident, which is bigger and more interesting. Oh, what is it? Tell me about it. Lu Yu looked at Yi Qingtang and let out a cold laugh. What else can it be? It is just that a certain person overestimated her abilities. After picking up a treasure and presenting it to an elder, she gained a generous number of Xianming points for nothing. Chapter 310. Lu Yu continued talking. This was originally a great thing, but someone just had to overestimate her own abilities. She did not use those Xianming points to cultivate honestly, and insisted on exchanging for the qualifications to participate in the inner sect assessment. She even excitedly exchanged for the spirit consonants river's usage rights for a few hours. Lu Yu said, "Won't that someone just look at what spirit root she has?" While Lu Yu did not mention the name, all the disciples present knew who she was talking about. The news of Yi Qingtang exchanging for the inner sect assessment's participation qualification and the spirit consonants river's usage rights had already circulated in the outer sect over the past 2 days. All the outer sect disciples who heard of the news thought that Yi Qingtang was crazy. Otherwise, why would she do such a wild thing? Senior sister Lu, don't talk about it anymore. Let's leave first. Su Wan mumbled as she tugged on Lu Yu's sleeves. Lu Yu frowned and said softly, "Are you really easy to be bullied? Are you still not clear what kind of person Yi Qingtang is? If not for her, why would senior brother Lu be flogged so many strokes? Senior brother Lu is still laying on bed to recuperate now." A bitter expression was seen on Su Wan's face, as though she suffered a huge wrong. Yun Shu's face darkened immediately when they heard the cutting remarks. He instinctively wanted to walk up to them, but was held back by Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang shook her head at Yun Shu slightly with a seeming smile. Senior brother Yin, why bother arguing with the likes of them? Are you not angry? Yun Shu was surprised. Yi Qingtang chuckled. If a dog bites me, should I bite it back? It was not for them to comment on whether she had the ability. On the day of the assessment, everything would be apparent. Yun Shu was a little shocked and could not help but laugh. Forget it. It is good to ignore them as well. However, what you did this time was indeed rash. I know that your natural endowment is good, but recklessly participating in this year's intersect assessment. Yun Shu spoke with a serious expression. Yi Qingtang said, Don't worry, senior brother Yin. Since I did it, I must have a certain level of confidence. Seeing her confidence, Yun Shu did not say anything more. Perhaps even Yun Shu himself did not notice that after the Shangyue fire tripod incident, he was no longer as gentle as before, and there was a fierce expression in his eyes. After sorting their thoughts, the two of them entered the martial arts hall to cultivate without wasting any more time. Su Wan watched Yun Shu and Yi Qingtang leave, and bit her finger secretly. She had never expected that Yun Shu still had a chance for recovery, while Lu Xiuwen, Yi Qingtang and Yun Shu had just entered the martial arts hall. But a disciple notified them that Elder Huang from the Outer Sect's sword faction summoned Shin Qianshu. Yi Qingtang immediately headed over. In the big hall, Elder Huang had a dignified expression, and an unusual expression passed by in his eyes when he saw Yi Qingtang walking in. Disciple greets Elder Huang, Yi Qingtang said with a kneel. Raise. Elder Huang scanned Yi Qingtang. He naturally did have some impression of Yi Qingtang. After all, she was the only red spirit root whom Xianling's sect accepted in the past 100 years. But because of that, Elder Huang did not pay too much attention to this disciple, as it was difficult for there to be any improvements, since her spirit root was too poor. Yet unexpectedly, Yi Qingtang, I heard that you exchanged for qualification to participate in the intersect assessment this year? Elder Huang asked straight to the point. Yes, Yi Qingtang replied. Chapter 311 Ridiculous. Elder Huang's face darkened. Do you know how dangerous the intersect assessment is? The opponents that you'll be facing are the elite disciples on the ranking chart. As a new disciple who just entered the sect, where did your guts to spar with them come from? Elder Huang had a strict expression, and there was no warmth in his tone. When he heard of this shocking move that Yi Qingtang took a few days ago, he was astonished. Although he did not pay much attention to Yi Qingtang, she was, after all, still an outer sect disciple. Given her abilities, would there not be a spectacle if she went into the ring? Where was he going to place his face as the outer sect elder at then? I know, Yi Qingtang replied calmly. Elder Huang's expression was still foul. You know, if you knew, why would you still do such a thing? In the top 10 disciples of the outer sect, the poorest skilled one is already at the early stage of Khanate level 9. If you battle them, do you know how severely injured you will be? There is even a possibility of dying on the ring. You're simply taking your life as a joke. So be it if it were other disciples. While they might be embarrassed should they enter the arena, they would not be seriously injured. But Yi Qingtang, as a new disciple, probably had not mastered the foundations, and was only a red spirit root. How would she be able to withstand those top 10 elites' attacks? If she entered the ring, the best outcome was to be severely injured while the worst. The more Elder Huang thought about it, the more he found it too dangerous. Thus, he summoned Yi Qingtang to persuade her. Yi Qingtang watched Elder Huang persuade her, but her heart did not waver at all, as she stood there without any expression. Elder Huang was helpless when saw how stubborn she was. Thinking of how she spent such a large sum of Xianming points to exchange for this qualification to participate in the assessment, she must be determined. I'll not say anything else. If things really reach that stage, you should admit defeat before it's too late. Don't fight head-on. If you injure yourself, any opportunity in the future will have to be given up, Elder Huang said helplessly. A smile passed Yi Qingtang's eyes. While Elder Huang was stern, and his words were mostly concerned about his face, she could feel from that last sentence that Elder Huang was really afraid she would die on the ring. I understand. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Huang, Yi Qingtang said. Elder Huang sighed and allowed her to retreat. However, as he watched Yi Qingtang leave, there was a worried look on his face. If Yi Qingtang's natural endowment was as brilliant as Yuan Weiss, he would not have persuaded her. Elder Huang was slightly comforted only when he thought of Yuan Wei. Yuan Weiss' skills were above average, and he was personally accepted as a disciple by him. If he could enter the top 10 on the ranking charts in this assessment, he would really gain a lot of face. Half a month flew by, and the outer sect finally welcomed the most serious assessment. All the outer sect disciples gathered at the square on that day, watching the 8 trigrams ring in the middle of the square. Everyone's hearts fluttered. I wonder how murderous this year's inner sect assessment will be. What else can it be? Do you think everyone has the opportunity to enter the inner sect? Just look at the conditions of those people on the ranking chart. Ji Xianyuan has already reached the peak of Khanate level 9 this year, and is only one stage away from martial Qi. Chapter 312. Senior brother Ji is the first on the ranking chart, and also the first in the outer sect. Who would dare to spar with him? Isn't that seeking death? Not just senior brother Ji, but which person on the ranking chart can we defeat? Moreover, only the top 3 elites in today's assessment will be accepted into the inner sect. Even if one managed to clinch the 4th place, they would still be unable to enter the inner sect. Unless you have outstanding natural endowments, and the inner sect elders took a fancy on you to make an exception, and bring you into the inner sect, you all can just dream on. Many outer sect disciples were gathered at the place, and actively discussed the inner sect assessment this year. The wide difference between the inner sect and outer sect was known by everyone. Even if outer sect disciples like them were the best in the outer sect, they would not be able to defeat the low-ranked inner sect disciples. All the outer sect disciples had their eyes set on entering the inner sect, but there were only a few people who had this chance every year. Will the few elders from the inner sect come today? A new disciple who just entered the sect this year asked with twinkling eyes. Yes, the inner sect elders will observe from a side in the assessment every year. Remember, fella, this is the only chance for outer sect disciples, like us, to see the inner sect elders. You must open your eyes wide, and take a clear look later. Thank you for your reminder, senior brother. I will definitely remember. That new disciple nodded repeatedly, but he took a glimpse of the ring's sidelines. Senior brother, why do I not see the inner sect elders? Are you dumb? Will the inner sect elders stand beside the ring? Didn't you see the observation tower behind the ring? The inner sect elders are already in the observation tower right now. They will be able to see everything that happens in the ring later clearly. So that is how it is. But speaking about this, there are still some interesting things to watch this year. What? Didn't you hear? There are 2 dark horses from the outer sect entering the ring this year. One of them is Tain Fu family clan's Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang personally recommended, while the other is Yi Qingtang, the only red spirit root in our outer sect. Another disciple had a surprised expression on his face. He did hear of Yuan Wei's name before, and felt that Yuan Wei had the qualifications to challenge the top 10 people on the ranking chart. But Yi Qingtang, don't think about it already. Just treat it as watching a spectacle. She wants to humiliate herself, so why should we be worried? Just treat it as a comedy to enjoy. At that instant, everyone was waiting for the assessment to start. Although this ring would decide the only 3 people to enter the sect, any capable person could also enter the ring to challenge those who ranked slightly before them. Even if they did not have the ability to become the top 3, they could still gain another mean of entering the inner sect should their performance be outstanding, and the inner sect elders make an exception to accept them as an inner sect disciple. In the observation tower, the inner sect elders were already standing by the window. They glanced across the thousands of outer sect disciples at the square. Elder Lin, do you have any outer sect disciple that you think highly of this year? The Fist faction elder asked with a smile as he looked at Elder Lin beside him. Elder Lin had a calm expression as he took a sip of tea, and his eyes fell on the 8 trigrams ring. It is not important whether I think highly of anyone. What is important is whether they have the qualifications to enter the inner sect. A few days ago, Elder Huang from the outer sect recommended Tianfu family clan's Yuan Wei. I heard that his natural endowment is good, and I am interested to see his performance today, said the Fist faction smilingly. There's indeed such an incident, Elder Lin said without emotions. Chapter 313. I heard that the outer sect's Ji Xianyuan is skilled, and is ranked first on the ranking chart. I wonder if anyone will challenge him today, the herbal faction elder said with a laugh. Then, he seemed to have recalled something and looked at Elder Lin. I heard that Lin Feng challenged the disciple who was ranked third on the outer sect's ranking chart last month, and was victorious. He is already ranked third on the ranking chart now. Upon hearing the words Lin Feng, there was a slight change in Elder Lin's expression. Although Feng is young, he is diligent. I am not worried about him. That is a given. Lin Feng is your grandson, and his natural endowments have been good since young. Holding the same family values as you, it seems to me that he will be able to make it today. The herbal faction elder laughed. Whether he has the qualifications to enter the inner sect is still dependent on his performance today. This has nothing to do with whether he is my grandson or not, Elder Lin said. The herbal faction elder laughed and did not say anything further. The few inner sect elders were all aware that the disciple placed third on the ranking charts was the grandchild of Elder Lin from the inner sect's sword faction. He was indeed above average, and if there were no accidents, he should be able to enter the inner sect this year. After taking a look at the outer sect disciples below, Elder Lin glimpsed at Elder Qin, whose expression was slightly ugly. Elder Qin, it's been a few days since I saw you. Why are you so unhappy? Could it be that you regret granting Yi Qingtang the qualification to take part in this year's assessment? Although there was no emotion in Elder Lin's tone, there was a hint of sarcasm in his words. Half a month ago, Yi Qingtang presented a mystic treasure of the Blood Moon sect to Elder Qin, and Elder Qin rewarded Yi Qingtang with a huge sum of Xianming points. Yet unexpectedly, these Xianming points were actually used to exchange for the inner sect assessment participation qualification. A new disciple who just entered Xianling sect for a few months actually had the nerve to take part in this assessment. If this was not seeking death, then what was this? Elder Qin was even more displeased after being mocked by Elder Lin. You're overthinking, Elder Lin. Since Yi Qingtang wants to do it, it is inconvenient for me to say anything. I am lost in thoughts only because I lost something. Thank you for worrying. Elder Qin was indeed in a foul mood at that point. That day when Yi Qingtang handed the revolving soul orb to him, he kept it carefully once he returned to the sect. But a few days ago, that revolving soul orb disappeared all of a sudden. He searched every corner in his room, but could not find any trace of it, and almost fainted in anger. Elder Qin was aware of how rare the revolving soul orb was. However, before the treasure that he just obtained was warm from his touch, it was already gone. He was really infuriated. Elder Lin looked at Elder Qin's frustrated behavior, and a pleased expression emerged in his eyes. Then he turned away and replied, Since you lost something, you should search carefully. All right. It is about time. The competition is going to start soon. Let's just watch first, said the Fist faction's elder. The square was extremely boisterous. Disciples surrounded the ring, and some were burning with eagerness to try it out, while some were waiting to watch the show. At the other end of the ring, 10 elegant and talented young disciples stood there in an imposing manner. Those were the disciples ranked top 10 on the ranking charts. Although Dai Changming was in 10th place, his demeanor was also different from other disciples. The appearance of these 10 people attracted much attention. Envious and fearful eyes were cast towards them. And just as everyone's attention was focused on those 10 people, Yi Qingtang and the Blood Moon sect elder entered the square without a sound. Chapter 314. These 10 people's demeanors are indeed different from everyone else's. They're definitely top-notch elites. The Blood Moon sect elder narrowed his eyes while looking at the 10 people on the ranking chart. Just standing in the square, he could already feel the rich air around them, which made his blood boil with temptation. Girl, are you competing with a few of them today? The Blood Moon sect elder took a look at the 10 people standing on stage, and then looked at Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang made huge improvements over the past few days, and this caused him to be even gloomier. If Yi Qingtang did not gift the revolving soul orb, it would have exploded in these few days. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Yi Qingtang shook her head. There were countless rounds of competition in the inner sect assessment, where outer sect disciples were individually selected. The ring today is to contend for the top 100 in the outer sect. I am not participating in it, Yi Qingtang said coldly. The 100 people who won today still needed to continue sparring to select the top 50. This continued, and ultimately, the top 10 people on the ranking chart would be born. Until a new batch of top 10 disciples remained, Yi Qingtang would not take part in it. She had the participation qualification, where she could compete on the last day, and did not need to go through back-to-back sparring. It was considered as one of the benefits of the 30,000 Xianming points spent. Not participating? Then what are you here for? The Blood Moon sect elder had a bewildered look. Yi Qingtang glimpsed at him. Have you heard the saying to know one's own strength, and the enemy's is the sure way to victory? Everyone who met the requirements in the outer sect could take part in the first day of the inner sect assessment. The wide square was boisterous, and disciples clenched their fists in preparation of a good fight. Yi Qingtang and the Blood Moon sect elder found a corner to observe the match where disciples full of vigor and vitality gave their all. After rounds of sparring, Yi Qingtang gradually had an insight into the disciples' skills. Of course, the top 10 people on the ranking charts were skillful. However, Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang recommended, displayed extraordinary skills on the first day of the competition. In the successive sparring, he never lost once and very quickly became a dark horse in this year's assessment with his brilliant results. From dawn to dusk, the competition for the first day lasted for an entire day, and the 100 people who ultimately succeeded were to take part in the competition on the second day. Seeing that the competition for the day was over, Yi Qingtang dragged the Blood Moon sect elder and left. The next morning, the assessment continued. Compared to the previous day, although the number of assessment takers reduced by half, the battles were increasingly intense. 50 people were eventually selected after half a day of battle. And the third day, with 10 people being able to make it out of the 50, the fights were even fiercer. In this period of time, Yi Qingtang went to observe the matches every day, until the assessment on the third day was over, and only 10 outer sect elites remained ultimately. And among these 10 people, there was Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang recommended. On the fourth morning, which was also the final battle for the inner sect assessment, the new batch of top 10 disciples on the ranking chart was already standing beside the ring. Today, the 10 of them will contend for the top 3 positions, which would allow them to enter the inner sect. Elder Huang was jovial these few days. Yesterday, Yuan Wei was extraordinary in the competition. Not only did he enter the top 10, he even placed fourth on the ranking chart, and this really inflated his self-esteem. When he saw Elder Lin from the inner sect yesterday, Elder Lin even offered rare praises. Chapter 315. Looking at Yuan Wei, who was standing beside the ring, Elder Huang could not hide his smile. Congratulations, Elder Huang. You really have a good eye. This Yuan Wei defeated the disciple ranked 4th on the ranking chart yesterday. He really cannot be belittled. In my opinion, there is a high chance for him to challenge the top 3 places with his abilities, praised another elder from the outer sect. It's nothing. It is Yuan Wei himself who has the talent. I just nominated him conveniently. Elder Huang replied humbly, though he was deeply pleased. Apart from Yuan Wei's outstanding performance, the other person who was responsible for Elder Huang's good mood was Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang never entered the ring in the past few days, and he had not seen her today as well, which finally put his mind at ease. He reckoned that after days of competition, Yi Qingtang should have seen the disciples' skills, especially in yesterday's competition where the sparring was even more aggressive with the appearance of the top 10 disciples on the ranking chart. It seemed, Yi Qingtang should have understood the situation clearly, and probably would not insist on entering the ring today. It was a pity though. Those 30,000 Xianming points were not used for anything, and just had to be wasted like that. At that thought, Elder Huang could not help but sigh. Other than the dark horse, Yuan Wei, there was no change in the ranking chart for the top 10 disciples. Ji Xianyuan was still ranked first, and Lin Feng was also ranked third. Rather, Dai Changming, who originally ranked 10th, was pushed back to the 11th rank because of Yuan Wei's addition. Luckily, he cultivated diligently during this period of time, and defeated the disciple ranked right before him, and climbed back to the 10th place once again. After days of battle, the disciples had more or less some knowledge about the skills of the top 10 people on the ranking chart, and as such, recognized the gap between themselves and the top 10 disciples. In the observation tower, the 4 inner sect elders who observed 3 days of competition were gathered together as they waited for the final day of competition. I don't blame Elder Huang for breaking the rules. This Yuan Wei is really promising with great potential. Elder Huang really has a good eye. Elder Lin praised rarely. What do you think, Elder Lin? Yuan Wei isn't the top 3, but he is extremely talented. If you favor him, you can accept him as a disciple, and make an exception to accept him into the inner sect, said the Fist faction elder. Elder Lin did not say anything, but seemed to be deep in thought. As the elders talked, the competition on the last day officially began. The top 3 disciples who would ultimately enter the inner sect would be decided today. The warden in charge of the competition stood in the center of the ring to declare the start of the competition. Many outer sect disciples were gathered in the square to watch the blood-filled battles amongst the top disciples. Yuan Wei stood below the ring and glanced across the sight before him. Suddenly, Yuan Wei took a step into the arena. His appearance resulted in a flurry of gasps. It should be known that Yuan Wei was currently placed 4th in the ranking chart. Now that he entered the ring once again, there was only one possibility. He wanted to challenge the holder of the top 3 positions. Disciple Yuan Wei wishes to challenge the 3rd place senior brother Lin Feng. Yuan Wei's face had an arrogance of the youth. Loud cheers erupted immediately. Standing below the ring, Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile, which added a tinge of haughtiness on his originally good-looking face. Chapter 316. Junior Brother Yin, since that is what you want, I can only play the game with you till the end. Lin Feng smiled, and with the point of his toes, he leaped into the arena. There were cheers below the ring. Yuan Wei was the biggest dark horse this year, and was victorious in all his matches over the past 3 days. Now that he was challenging Lin Feng today, many were boiling with excitement. Do you think that Yuan Wei's chance of winning is bigger or senior brother Lin's chance of winning is bigger? The onlooking disciples discuss fervently. Yuan Wei's skills is indeed powerful, but senior brother Lin is the elite of the elite in our outer sect. Furthermore, his improvement this year is extremely huge. I think that Yuan Wei may not be able to win. Yuan Wei has not lost any round until now, and his moves are quick and fierce. It is still not certain who will win and who will lose in this battle. As everyone was caught up in their discussion on the ring, Yuan Wei had already attacked. His figure turned into a shadow, and the sword into a cold light, which flashed across the ring, and charged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood rooted to the ground without moving. His narrowed eyes reflected Yuan Wei's shadow, and he smiled briefly. This little junior brother was really so arrogant. Just as Yuan Wei was about to attack Lin Feng suddenly vanished. Losing his target, Yuan Wei was instinctively stunned for a second, but before he could return to his senses, Lin Feng already appeared behind him, and his sword directly stabbed towards Yuan Wei's shoulder. In almost an instant, Yuan Wei turned around and did a backflip, avoiding this fatal blow with only one hand on the ground to support his body. But before Yuan Wei adjusted his posture, Lin Feng already chased after him swiftly with fancy swordplay. The countless glistenings of the sword entered Yuan Wei's eyes. Alarmed, he only managed to raise a sword to counter Lin Feng's attack. The two swords clashed, and a loud clank rang. Yuan Wei used the force to pull some distance between Lin Feng, wanting to change from being on the offense to defense. However, when he did a flip and struck his sword towards Lin Feng was already prepared. He immediately lifted his sword and hurled Yuan Wei's sword away while at the same time landing a fierce kick on Yuan Wei's abdomen. In just a moment, Yuan Wei was kicked out of the ring by Lin Feng. Yuan Wei, who fell off the ring, appeared in a rather bad state as he looked in astonishment at Lin Feng, who was looking down at him from a height. That was a good fight, junior brother Yuan Wei. Lin Feng nodded at Yuan Wei with a seeming smile. Although his words were humble, there was arrogance in his voice. Yuan Wei frowned, and Elder Huang came forward to help him up. You've already performed very well. However, it's still too difficult to compete for the top 3 positions. Lin Feng's improvement this year is very huge, and he simply isn't your match. Although Yuan Wei lost, Elder Huang was already extremely satisfied with Yuan Wei's performance over the past few days. He was similarly shocked at Lin Feng's improvement, and with his current skills. But he was afraid that Yuan Wei lost while Lin Feng won, and the onlooking disciples below the ring became restless. Senior brother Lin is still amazing. Yuan Wei is so powerful, but could only pass 4 moves. TSK. This is just scary. On the ring, Lin Feng did not walk down from the stage after the sparring. He lifted his chin slightly and glanced across the people. When his eyes fell on Ji Xianyuan, an ambitious expression flashed past his eyes. Chapter 317. Ranking Chart 2. Since I am in the ring, I also have a target whom I wish to challenge, Lin Feng suddenly said with a smile. Then he raised his sword and pointed its tip at the first person in the outer sect, Ji Xianyuan. Senior brother Ji, are you willing to come up and exchange a few moves as a teaching? With that said, everyone below the ring cheered immediately. Lin Feng defeated Yuan Wei with only 4 moves, and this shocked everyone. Now that he actually wanted to challenge Ji Xianyuan, the number 1 on the ranking chart, it would really be a highlight match in the outer sect. In the observation tower, there was no expression on Elder Lin's face, and only a hint of satisfaction in his eyes as he watched Lin Feng's arrogance. How could his grandson be satisfied with a 3rd place? Ji Xianyuan was called out by Lin Feng before everyone. This was the first time someone dared to challenge him since the first day of the inner sect assessment. With everyone's cheers, Ji Xianyuan slowly walked up to the ring with a calm expression. Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile as he watched Ji Xianyuan walk up the arena. Please offer me some teachings, senior brother Ji. Ji Xianyuan cast Lin Feng a cold look and said calmly, You may attack first, junior brother Lin. Ever since Ji Xianyuan first entered the ranking chart, he had never been defeated in any match. His position on the ranking chart only moved up and never fell. After he topped the ranking chart, no one could shake his position regardless of who challenged him. Lin Feng was really the only person in this past year who dared to challenge Ji Xianyuan's number 1 position. However, everyone witnessed Lin Feng's improvements this year. Everyone was stirred by this fierce struggle between 2 equally matched opponents as they watched the intense battle that was about to happen soon without blinking an eye. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. A sharp expression passed by his eyes briefly as he looked at the composed and steady Ji Xianyuan. However, he was not anxious to attack. He was not Yuan Wei, who only knew to act rashly. Just as Lin Feng was quietly observing Ji Xianyuan, he suddenly grabbed an opportunity and leaped forward with his sword pointing at Ji Xianyuan's skull. There was no emotion in Ji Xianyuan's eyes. Looking at the sword that was in close proximity, he did not dodge at all. Right when the crowd was nervous, he suddenly threw out a punch at the last second when the sword was about to touch him. This punch accurately landed on the hand, which Lin Feng held the sword in. What seemed like a light punch, however, snapped the sword out of Lin Feng's hand. The sword that left Lin Feng's hand gleamed in the midair. Before Lin Feng could react, Ji Xianyuan's upper body was bent forward slightly, and he landed a fierce punch on Ji Xianyuan's stomach. With just a punch, Lin Feng was forced backward. His face turned white in an instant, and cold sweat trickled down from his forehead. There was dead silence below the ring. No one expected that Ji Xianyuan could cause Lin Feng to pale in just 2 moves. Just looking at Lin Feng's contorted expression, it was easy to know how heavy that punch was. These were the skills of the number 1 on the ranking chart. A powerful combat ability that could be comparable to that of an inner sect disciple's. Lin Feng panted faintly. Forcefully straightening himself, he looked at the emotionless Ji Xianyuan opposite of him. Senior brother Ji is indeed powerful. I admit defeat. No matter how unwilling he was, he clearly saw how frightening the gap between him and Ji Xianyuan was. Even if he continued fighting, he would only be embarrassing himself. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Ji Xianyuan turned around and walked down the ring silently, as though nothing ever happened just now. Chapter 318. Ranking Chart 3. The number 2 on the excellence roll initially had the thought of challenging Ji Xianyuan, but after witnessing the sight, he completely waved the white flag and dropped the idea of snatching the number 1 position. Only God knows that Ji Xianyuan was this powerful. In the observation tower, Elder Lin saw Lin Feng's defeat, but there was not much expression on his face. As the elders saw that there was no one else who went up to the ring, they knew that the inner sect assessment for this year would conclude soon. The top 3 on the excellence roll is already finalized. We should give them the qualifications to enter the inner sect. Elder Lin stood up slowly and was about to grant the top 3 the inner sect entrance qualification with the other 3 elders. The disciples in the square thought about how exciting the matches were today and wished they had such powerful skills as well. Elder Huang, who was beside the ring, heaved a sigh of relief secretly. When he saw that the few elders walking out from the observation tower, Elder Huang immediately welcomed them with other outer sect elders. Greetings, elders, Elder Huang said. Elder Huang, Yuan Wei did pretty well this year. The person you selected is amazing. Elder Lin praised. Elder Huang was delighted and felt that his face was glowing. Since the assessment this year has ended, the top 3 can be granted admission into the inner sect already, Elder Lin said. Noted. Elder Huang nodded and immediately turned to walk up the ring. Under everyone's gaze, he announced, the inner sect assessment today is already over. Before Elder Huang finished his sentence, a clear female voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. Elder Huang, I have not taken my assessment. With that, Elder Huang felt a tug on his heart, and everyone looked in the direction of the voice. What appeared before their eyes was the small-framed Yi Qingtang was walking towards the ring. This sight caused Elder Huang's heart to rise up his throat. Discussions exploded in the square. Yi Qingtang? She really dared to come? It can't be. I didn't see her entering the ring these few days. I still thought those rumors were false. Don't joke anymore. With just that level of skills, she may just be beaten into a pulp by all these senior brothers. Don't be blinded by her face. There was a flurry of discussions in the square. Everyone felt that Yi Qingtang must be crazy. Otherwise, why would she still dare to seek death after witnessing so many rounds of the competition? As they were discussing, Yi Qingtang had already walked up to the ring and handed the assessment qualification waste tablet that she exchanged from Elder Qin into Elder Huang's hands. Elder Huang frowned in exasperation that his words fell on deaf ears and wished he could just pull Yi Qingtang down from the stage. Why is this girl so stubborn? Does she know how dangerous this ring is? This is my assessment qualification. Please verify it, Elder Huang. Elder Huang's lips twitched as he looked at the waste tablet in his hands and tried to maintain his composure. This is the waste tablet for the inner sect assessment. Are you aware that if you use this qualification, you'll have to directly challenge the top 3 people on the excellence roll? Elder Huang hinted at Yi Qingtang for the last time. Her waste tablet could allow her to skip the competitions in the previous day, but also restricted the opponents that she had to challenge to the disciples who were placed in the top 3 positions. I am aware. Yi Qingtang nodded. Elder Huang was really mad that he did not know what to do. Yi Qingtang, Since that is what you want, I will permit you to start your assessment. However, remember not to force yourself. In the end, Elder Huang still could not help but advise her again. Chapter 319. Ranking Chart 4. Yi Qingting nodded. The assessment continued, and Elder Huang could only walk down the stage temporarily. The inner sect assessment, which should have ended, was extended because of Yi Qingtang's arrival, and the disciples who were about to leave stopped in their tracks. Perhaps in scorn or curiosity, their eyes were fixed on Yi Qingtang. After a few rumors from the insiders, many were more or less aware of the background of this girl on the stage. Elder Lin and the rest, who were about to grant qualification certificates to the top 3 on the excellence roll, stopped walking as well, and waited at the side of the ring for the last match to start. Disciple Yi Qingtang is contending for a qualification to enter the inner sect. Yi Qingtang declared on the ring. This neither haughty nor humble statement attracted many cheers. Below the ring, Lin Feng looked at Yi Qingtang and smiled briefly. He shrugged his shoulders and walked up into the ring with large steps, where his tall frame faced Yi Qingtang. Elder Huang from aside was extremely conflicted. Although Lin Feng lost to Ji Xianyuan, his skills were evidently way above that of normal outer sect disciples. How could Yi Qingtang fight him? Please take care of me, junior sister Yi. The corners of his lips were tugged up. He was the 3rd on the excellence roll, and since Yi Qingtang wanted to contend for the inner sect qualification, she would naturally spar with him. Looking up towards Lin Feng, who was already ready to strike an attack, Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke out. Wait. Lin Feng initially wanted to end this nonsense of a competition as soon as possible, and thus could not help but frown when he heard Yi Qingtang. Why? Could it be that you regret your decision? At that instant, Elder Huang earnestly wished Yi Qingtang would have a sudden awakening and quickly come down from the ring. There were muffled laughs among the surrounding disciples as well. Indeed, not many had the boldness to spar with such a skilled elite like Lin Feng. However, just as everyone assumed Yi Qingtang regretted going into the ring, Yi Qingtang suddenly lifted a hand. Her finger moved past Lin Feng on the stage and pointed at Ji Xianyuan, who was standing below the ring. I want to challenge senior brother Ji, the number 1 on the excellence roll. Yi Qingtang's words caused a blast of comments in the square. Is Yi Qingtang crazy? She actually wants to challenge senior brother Ji directly? What kind of joke is this? With her skills, she might not even make it through one move from senior brother Ji. All the disciples were completely shocked by Yi Qingtang's words. Elder Huang's heart, which had just calmed down, raced immediately. He widened his eyes in disbelief and looked at Yi Qingtang. On the ring, Lin Feng was dumbfounded for a moment. An astonished expression flashed across his eyes. He obviously did not expect Yi Qingtang's appetite to be this huge. She actually initiated a challenge to Ji Xianyuan directly. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes, and his lips curled into a sarcastic smile. With a casual shrug, he turned to look at Ji Xianyuan. Senior brother Ji, junior sister Yi wishes to spar with you. I guess you can only help to fulfill her wish. Then, Lin Feng jumped down from the ring. There was no expression on Ji Xianyuan's face as he walked up to the ring after casting a look at Yi Qingtang. According to the inner sect assessment qualification that Yi Qingtang obtained, she could challenge any one of the top 3 disciples on the excellence roll. However, the act of directly challenging the number 1 was unbelievably insane. Chapter 320. The Top of the Outer Sect 1. Senior Brother Ji. I'm honored to learn from you. Yi Qingtang finally smiled as she saw Ji Xianyuan walking onto the arena. Ji Xianyuan just nodded slightly. His face was expressionless. After Lin Feng challenged the top position of Ji Xianyuan, all disciples knew the true ability of Ji Xianyuan. His ability was comparable with inner sect disciples. Who else in the outer sect dared to challenge him? Yet unexpectedly, Yi Qingtang was so bold. Elder Qin, who was standing at the side of the arena, frowned upon hearing Yi Qingtang's choice. Elder Lin showed a peculiar sight as he witnessed the concern Elder Qin showed. The warden who was in charge of the arena announced the beginning of the competition after confirming with Yi Qingtang. This competition was different from the rest today. The whole square was silent after the announcement was made. This was completely a one-sided challenge. No one even had any expectations for Yi Qingtang. When everyone was out of interest, Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes. However, she did not begin her attack. Instead, she was staring at Ji Xianyuan cautiously. Ji Xianyuan took a quick glance at Yi Qingtang and attacked instantly. His body appeared like a streak of light on the arena. He did not even pull out his sword as he dashed towards Yi Qingtang like the wind. His fist smashed towards Yi Qingtang's temple as he landed on the ground. However, the instant when Ji Xianyuan raised his fist, Yi Qingtang's heel turned, and her tiny body moved sideways. The sharp wind created by the fist flew through her hair on the temple. Boom! The wind created by the fist smashed the stone pillar behind Yi Qingtang. The crushed stones flew away and dropped to the ground. As the dust spread, all disciples who were not interested previously were stunned. How is Yi Qingtang so lucky? One disciple stared at the crushed stone pillar and was shocked when he noticed Yi Qingtang was not hurt at all. If the fist landed on the human body, even if this person did not die instantly, they would be disabled. No one expected Yi Qingtang to be able to dodge the first attack away by luck. Did senior brother Ji not use his full strength? Lin Feng raised his brows. He did not believe that Ji Xianyuan's attack would be dodged away by a new disciple. Ji Xianyuan frowned as his first attack missed. He stared at Yi Qingtang, whose face still remained calm. His eyes sparkled. At the next second, Ji Xianyuan stepped on the ground and opened his fist. Strong air currents were concentrated in his palm. The Gale Palm. Elder Huang, who was at the side of the arena, was stunned when he saw Ji Xianyuan's palm. The Gale Palm was the most powerful palm skill in the outer sect. Its power was unimaginable, and even the wind created was extremely sharp. Within a second, Ji Xianyuan smashed his palm towards Yi Qingtang's head. Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes as the strong wind blew her hair up. Suddenly, a trace of cold light appeared in her eyes. The moment Ji Xianyuan smashed down his palm, her body leaned backward, and she raised her left arm. The white hand swiped across Ji Xianyuan's palm, but she did not manage to hold the palm. However, Yi Qingtang's hand suddenly turned and grabbed Ji Xianyuan's wrist. Her feet pushed off the ground and jumped backward. She pushed down Ji Xianyuan's wrist and smashed towards the 8 trigrams stage using the downward force. Chapter 321. The top of the outer sect 2 boom. A huge crack appeared at the area where the palm landed. Tiny crack lines suddenly spread across the whole arena. Ji Xianyuan frowned and lifted his leg. Yi Qingtang used her arm to fend off the kick. Her hand that was holding his wrist did not let go, and she used her leg to attack Ji Xianyuan's lower body. Ji Xianyuan supported himself with one hand to dodge off the kick. He rotated his wrist and held Yi Qingtang's hand. He pulled strongly and smashed Yi Qingtang towards the arena as he turned his body. Yi Qingtang's eyes sparkled, and she used her elbow to support herself on the ground. She flipped backward and used her feet to kick towards Ji Xianyuan's face. The two of them released their hands at almost the same time. Ji Xianyuan backed off immediately to dodge the kick. Yi Qingtang stood up and noticed the blood coming out from the cut on her face caused by cracked stones. Within a split second, the atmosphere between the two of them was totally different. There was complete silence at the square. The outer sect disciples were shocked as they witnessed what had just happened. Is it a joke? Am I seeing things? How is it possible? Yi Qingtang fended off Ji Xianyuan's Gale Palm. She could even fight with him for a few rounds without being on the disadvantaged side. Lin Feng, whose face was calm, also hid the smile on his face instantly. Elder Huang was also astonished. The moment Ji Xianyuan smashed his palm, he thought Yi Qingtang would definitely lose. He never imagined that Yi Qingtang wiped off the blood on her face with her fingers and squinted her eyes. Ji Xianyuan was indeed strong as the top person in the outer sect. However, this fight, she must win. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath and began her attack. She pulled out her sword and dashed towards Ji Xianyuan. Ji Xianyuan's sight changed as Yi Qingting approached her in a split second. Her speed was as fast as lightning. The cool light from the tip of the sword pierced straight towards his heart. Ji Xianyuan rotated his body sideways immediately and lifted his leg to kick towards Yi Qingtang's sword. However, it seemed that Yi Qingtang was prepared for that. The moment Ji Xianyuan lifted his leg, she lowered her arm, and the sword in her hand went past his leg and pierced towards his waist. Such a swift reaction. Ji Xianyuan was stunned and pulled out his sword using his right hand instinctively. A crisp sound was heard. Yi Qingtang's sword was fended off by Ji Xianyuan's sword. Seeing your brother Ji just used his sword? Many disciples opened their eyes wide as they stared at the sword in Ji Xianyuan's hand. Even when he was fighting with the third person, Lin Feng, on the honor roll list, Ji Xianyuan only used the handle of the sword to beat Lin Feng. He was forced to use his sword now. How ridiculous this was. It was another round of dead silence at the square. Everyone's faces were full of surprise. Junior sister Ye's ability is really beyond my imagination. I didn't know that there was a disciple like you in the outer sect, Ji Xianyuan said. Everyone was taken aback as they heard Ji Xianyuan's words. Ji Xianyuan just approved Yi Qingtang's ability? How could this be? Senior brother Ji is as strong as the rumors say. Yi Qingtang was not trying to be polite. Ji Xianyuan's ability deserved the top position in the outer sect. Chapter 322. The Top of the Outer Sect 3. Everyone at the square looked at Yi Qingtang in a complex way. No one could imagine that such an insignificant disciple would make the top on the honor roll list. Ji Xianyuan, get so serious. Elder Huang's concern had become a strange feeling. He could not describe how he felt now as he stared at Yi Qingtang. He even had some expectations now. Other disciples might not notice during the fight, but Elder Huang had seen everything clearly. Ji Xianyuan did not hold back at all. Every single move was ferocious. However, Yi Qingtang could fend off all of them, and even took the chance to attack. It was hard to tell who was stronger now. No one expected that she could fight with the top disciple of the outer sect until now. Only until now did Elder Huang then understand why Yi Qingtang had the courage to challenge Ji Xianyuan. I was wrong this time. Elder Huang sighed. Based on Yi Qingtang's moves just now, he was astonished by her ability. Even if she lost in the end, it would still be an honor. She would be another strong candidate in the intersect assessment this year. Ji Xianyuan took a light breath and stared at Yi Qingtang. It's an honor to have a battle with you, junior sister Yi. The moment when he finished his sentence, he pulled out his sword. A streak of cold light appeared beside him as he dashed forward. Yi Qingtang smiled. She did not back off, and instead, she raised her sword and was ready to fight. The light of the sword sparkled on the arena instantly. Only two shadows could be seen. They moved so fast that many disciples were dazzled. Everyone's sight was captured by the two people on the arena. Yi Qingtang is insane to be able to fight against the top person of the outer sect. She is a monster. How long has she entered the sect for? Ji Xianyuan is at the peak of Khanate level 9. Ji Xianyuan's state was entirely different from before. His sight was very sharp. As he split his sword down, the sword breath filled the whole arena. It seemed to create a violent gust of wind. Yi Qingtang's body changed into a virtual and blurry figure. She took a lap, and her hair was flying under the wind. Her sword was dyed gold by the sunlight, and she pierced the sword directly at Ji Xianyuan. The sound of the swords colliding, and the shadows of the swords sparkling were everywhere in the arena. Lin Feng stared at this intense battle unbelievably. His eyes were full of surprise. He clearly knew how strong was Ji Xianyuan after experiencing a battle with him. That was the reason why Lin Feng could not believe that there was anyone in the outer sect that was able to fight against Lin Feng. Yi Qingtang. What was her background? Lin Feng did not even hear of this name before the intersect assessment. However, Yi Qingtang was engaged in an intense battle with Ji Xianyuan when Lin Feng himself could not even compete with him. Even Dai Changming, who was in the same mission with Yi Qingtang before, was shocked by the battle. He was so nervous when Yi Qingtang stepped onto the arena. However, The nervousness was long gone, and his whole body was filled with astonishment. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.